Good evening, and it is 5:30 on Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Chairman John Hastings, presiding. Also present are Commissioners Mo Stunkel, Grant Simmons, Wayne Benner, Scott Torpy, and our newest commissioner, Mr. Reed Weber. Thank you, sir, for serving. At this time, Commissioner Ramar is not here, but we will update that should it change. If everyone would please stand, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, I'm going to ask Mayor Jeremy Grimm to address the commission and the public that's here tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hastings. First and foremost, thank you for your lengthy service on the Planning Commission. I have been and interacted with you as a consultant before being mayor, and as mayor, I just really appreciate your service, all of your service, but this will be your last meeting and you've done a great job. And hopefully, as you move forward as a Planning Commission, you'll find someone to fill those shoes. Also, thank you, Reed, for volunteering, and you'll be getting, I believe, one more Planning Commissioner, Bill. Is that right? Will, is he here tonight as well? I will. Oh, there you are, neighbor. All right. So the reason I'm here tonight is I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I'm thrilled that we have a full room. This is one of the more attended Planning Commission meetings I've been to in a long time. Unfortunately, I think the reason a lot of people are here is because of some very inaccurate information that somehow has grown a life of its own. I just want you to know and the public to know there's never been any idea to privatize City Beach, never come out of my mouth, never come out of any of my staff's mouth. Nothing we've ever considered. That beach is sacred to the residents of Sandpoint, sacred to me. Second of all, no favors, concessions, backroom deals, or anything were given to the proposed hotel. The owners of the hotel, as were stated, and you'll hear more about, simply chose to utilize two provisions of code that any property owner developing in this town have the right to utilize. One is the in lieu fee for up to 50% of required parking. The other is the site-specific analysis for parking, which they chose to perform. They used a hotel in Whitefish, which is very similar to our region. And our code, as a matter of right, allows developers or property owners to utilize both those provisions. So no trading, no backroom deals, smoke-filled, no money, other than them paying the in lieu fee if they choose to do that. So I wanted to clarify that. And then finally, what you're going to be hearing about tonight is a subject that I am very passionate about. In fact, I'm going down to the city of Haley on February 10th to talk about parking to their community because they're struggling through some challenges of on and off street parking. I just want to focus on two things on that subject. One, back in 2000, I want to say it was 2010, as the planning director, I was very, very pleased that we were front-loaded in the country. We eliminated all off-street parking requirements in our downtown. If you build, develop, or change use of a building, such as Coachella or Joel's, or any of the other buildings, if you change from warehouse to office or a restaurant, you want to add a couple seats, we eliminated the requirement that you have to build off-street parking. This has allowed many of our existing structures to be rehabilitated, to change use. And as you'll hear tonight, our 2022 parking analysis shows that we have in excess of hundreds of parking spaces, even on our peak demand days downtown. Now, I believe someday we're going to need a parking structure in our community. The challenge is paying for that. And what I've studied in my life as a land use planner is that you need something called parking stress to pay for a parking structure. You actually need to have enough demand for parking so that people will be willing to pay $3 an hour to go into the little turnstile. Otherwise, if people aren't using it, you can't pay the bond and the financing to pay for it. So someday, I believe we need a parking structure. In the interim, I think our parking study and analysis show that we have sufficient parking. You may have to walk a block, but we all walk from the back of Walmart to the parking lot, probably frequently. We all can do that. And then lastly, this is really about how do we maintain and pay for the maintenance and the sustainability of our facilities. My number one focus for our residents is to put them first, like our president. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect somebody from Spokane or Kootenai County to travel to our parks and our jewel of a park, City Beach, and get to eat pizza and put trash in our trash receptacles and hang out there all day without paying their share to maintain that parking surface. Additionally, there's a misbelief that as a county residents, the city benefits financially, some great windfall from people coming into the city of Sandpoint. I can tell you, between all the fees and the very small portion of our sales tax we get returned to us in Sandpoint, Sandpoint does not benefit financially from people coming into Sandpoint. So I think it's equally as fair for our county residents and friends to help support the cost of maintaining our parking facilities, because I'm proud of this community, and our city parking lot and our beach parking lot are very embarrassing. These are the gateways, the entry points. There are public spaces, and I want to be able to maintain them, and we don't have the money to do that right now. So as you enter into this discussion, I hope I've clarified some things for the lovely people who took the time to come out tonight. City Beach is not being sold. It's not being privatized. It never will be under my administration. And I look forward to your discussion. Thank you for everything, and look forward to your recommendations on all this stuff. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Grimm. Commissioners, do we have any general announcements? Nobody?
No.
All right. Then at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our December 17th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a Commissioner Dunkel made the motion. Commissioner Benner made the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So the new business on the agenda is to have this discussion about the proposed parking management plan throughout Sandpoint, not just City Beach, but other areas are involved as well. This is kind of a hybrid meeting, if you will. There's no formal decision being made here tonight. We're not voting on anything. But we still asked, if you want to comment, to please fill out one of the little forms that were on the table there when you first came in. We don't have the strict requirements that we normally do to limit your comments to 3 minutes, but we'd like you to try and do that. So giving everybody a chance to speak. We will run the little timer just so you kind of have an idea. We have it, but we're not going to shut anybody off, but do, out of respect to everybody, try to limit your comments. Part of that too, if somebody has already made a point that you are in total agreement with, rather than restate the point, tell us that. That is something that I agree with, so that so-and-so had said. Just kind of the general outline of what we're going to do. First of all, we will have a time of general public comment not related to tonight's agenda. And then we will hear the staff presentation on the parking management plan. And then commissioners will have the opportunity to ask questions of city staff. And after that, then the public will be able to make their comments. And again, it's meant to be comments. Tell us what your thoughts are. And it is, as was already said, most of the time we're sitting up here lonely because we don't have people. So but when we do have people, we get a better output. That's the bottom line. The more people that have input, the better output that the product that the city is going to get. So, and then after the public comment, commissioners will have a time for discussion. And at the end of that, if there's anybody else in the public who would like to comment, we'll open it up again for additional comments. If you comment, 3 opportunities for comment this evening. You only have to fill out 1 form. You don't have to fill out 3 forms. You can just fill out the one. Let's see here. So I'm going to do this first then, and I don't know how this is kind of a new thing, and that was just, is there any comment that anybody here would like to take that relates to city business in general, planning and zoning more directly, that's not related to the management plan. That's the agenda item this evening. If there's anybody on Zoom, do we have people on Zoom tonight?
We do, Mr. Chair.
Is there anybody in Zoom that wants a general comment not related to the parking management plan?
I do not have anybody's hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. So then we will, I will just make this one other statement, and that's just the quorum, and I think we're all a good group of people here. The rules have been posted, and again, we're not as formal as sometimes, but still we ask that you be pleasant and respectful of one another's statements. Don't make any kind of derogatory statements towards one another, city staff, the commission, or anybody else. No calling out, clapping, holding signs, marching around. And public comment is for comment only. We want to know your thoughts. Hopefully in the discussions of the city presentation and the commissioners questioning, questions will be answered, but it is meant to give your comment on what has been discussed and not to ask further questions, but hopefully your questions will be answered throughout the course of the evening. So, and when it is your turn to speak, we ask too that you give us your name and whether or not you reside in the city limits of Sandpoint. So, anybody have questions on that? Commissioner, public? Does that sound like a reasonable? Yes.
Do you want us to hold our questions for staff until after their presentation?
Till after we normally kind of do that. Yeah, we'll wait till after the staff has given us presentation, and then we will ask questions, and then it'll be public comment. So, so with that being the case, then at this time, oh, I will mention that too. The people who are on Zoom, not right now, but when the public comment time comes, then be sure to raise your hand. Click the little button that says "Raise your hand," and then we will get to you. For sure, we'll get to everybody who wants to speak this evening. So at this time, I will yield the floor to Jason Welker, who will lead us through the current iteration of the proposed parking management plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Hastings. And I would just like to start by reiterating the mayor's comments in appreciation for your service over the years. How long have you been on the commission, John? I know you were there when I started 6 years ago.
And I think that's what we're saying, 6, maybe a little bit more. When I first came in, I was filling somebody's role, and then I was here so long that they passed term limits, and so they're making me leave. But
Yeah, well, your service has been great. And I, for members of the public who don't know, I started on the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2019, so almost 6 years ago. And John, at the time, was already on the commission. So you were a great mentor at the time, and I appreciate your service. It's been great working with you over the years, and you'll be missed. I'm sorry you were forced to leave due to term limits, but that's America. And to Reed Weber, thank you for joining. And Will Mitchell's here tonight. He'll be joining at the next meeting, assuming the seat of Amelia Boyd, whose term ended tonight as well. So
Reed is Amelia Boyd.
Reed's Amelia. Oh, sorry, he's taking over. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Will, for volunteering as well. And just remember to the public, we had this application open for new commissioners for about 4 months, and we received a total of 2 applications. So we would have loved to have more, gender representation on the commission. Unfortunately, we didn't get any applicants filling that other gender role. So we are very thankful for those who volunteer their time. We are going to have a busy calendar for you in the next few months with a few applications coming before the commission for public hearings just in the next 2 months. So it has been a quiet period for the last 7 or 8 months. Just no new applications have come through that require planning and zoning hearings, but that's about to change. So I'd also like to thank members of the public. This is the first of several public engagement opportunities around the proposed parking management plan. I personally reached out to members of the community from both the Democratic women and the Republican women of Bonner County after seeing recent op-eds in the paper, and invited them to come out and ask them to post on social media and to recruit their members to come join us tonight. We are very interested in getting public input on these policies because the purpose here is really to benefit and provide improved access. Despite what some people assume we're trying to do, we're really trying to improve access for members of the area to our public resources downtown. So I'm going to start a presentation. This will be about a 10 or 15-minute presentation.
I'm going to interrupt just one moment. This might be a good time to inform the public of what those other opportunities for involvement will be.
Yes, there's also a slide on here.
Okay, never mind.
We're going to have actually a week from yesterday, there will be a Sustainability Committee meeting. And early February, there's a pedestrian bicycle committee meeting. We will be at the February Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and then sometime later in February, most likely a city council meeting.
I apologize. We were just informed that there is a green Mustang outside running with its lights on, or that has its lights on, if that is anybody's vehicle.
That is Tammy's electric Mustang, and I'm pretty sure that it's not consuming any fossil fuels by sitting. And she is working out of the gym next door right now. Yes, I do know that. Thank you for that. Okay, we've got about a 15-minute presentation. I do ask that you hold your questions for the end of the presentation. I'm sure you'll have many. There's a lot of facts and figures in this presentation, and I hope you find it informative. So the proposal here is a parking management plan for the city of Sandpoint. You're going to see some quotes from our recently adopted comp plan, which called for, actually, this was goal 1A of our multimodal transportation chapter, was to develop a parking management plan for downtown, because the comp plan foresaw the challenges that we are seeing in our community. Also, this presentation is full of historic photos to prove a point, and that is that paid parking in Sandpoint is not something new. Okay? You're going to see evidence of paid parking in downtown Sandpoint throughout the history of the automobile in Sandpoint in this presentation. So the question is, why are we talking about bringing back paid parking to downtown Sandpoint? One of the number one complaints I hear in this town is the parking challenges, particularly at our off-street parking lots downtown. It's evidenced 7 days a week, year-round at the city lot, which averages around 80% occupancy midweek in the off-season and over 90% in the peak season. The city beach lot is pretty much empty for most of the year, but during those 2.5 months of the peak summer month, we're going to see the numbers. It is 100% occupied, meaning it's almost impossible to find a parking spot at the peak hour during the summer months at City Beach under the status quo. So we do know this. We did a 2022 parking study at the city of Sandpoint that observed all of this, and this presentation is full of data from that study. So just this is the why slide. Why are we talking about a parking management plan? Okay, we've got the lack of available parking for the community that our public parking facilities are really meant to serve, first and foremost, which is area residents and priority users. When I say priority users, I mean people who have slips at the City Beach Marina, and the shoppers who we are trying to accommodate, who come downtown and spend money at our local businesses. We have failing infrastructure. In addition to historic photos, you're going to see photos taken last week at all of our public parking facilities in town. And I think anybody who's experienced them, it's hard to argue that our parking facilities are well maintained. We literally haven't resurfaced our public parking lots in most people's lifetime in this room because there's no funding for that. And we have a situation where upwards of 80 to 90% of the use of those facilities during the peak season is by non-residents, tourists, out-of-state visitors who are not currently contributing a dime to the maintenance or operations of our public parking facilities. And again, it's not something that's new for Sandpoint. We've had paid parking throughout most of our history. So we're going to get right into the hot button issue, which is the City Beach Hotel. By the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce our city planner. This is Bill. He's been a huge addition to our city. You guys have met him a few times. Bill is joining us with over 30 years of planning experience, and he has just been a super valuable team member since he joined in July. So he might be jumping in here a few times. He's been a real good counsel on this parking management plan. So we did just want to get right into this. This parking management plan was a recommendation in our comprehensive plan and a recommendation from our parking study in 22. It's not a result of the proposed hotel at City Beach. The proposed hotel at City Beach, as the mayor indicated, is being required to provide the number of off-street parking stalls that code requires it to provide. Okay? There is no privatization of City Beach. City retains full control over all of our public parking lots, and any paid parking at any of our city lots are not going into the hands of private developers. They're going into the city's funds that are set aside for the maintenance and improvement of our parking facilities and the amenities that they serve. Okay, the privatization would leak public resources into the hands of private developers. This hotel project does not reduce public parking supply. That's not anything that's been proposed. No public parking spots are proposed to be handed over to the hotel whatsoever. Okay, so just reiterating that. All right, here's some just some background kind of theory about parking and the fact that the illusion of free parking is one that some people take for granted. Okay, what happens when you provide free off-street parking in a downtown core? And by the way, I took this picture on Friday that you see on the top, and I went to Google Street View and backed up a few years because as recently as 2016, our city lot was a paid parking lot. It was 1 hour free, and then it was $2 an hour beyond that. So that was the status quo. That lot was not free until 2016, at which time it was converted by the mayor and city council to be a free lot. So free parking isn't free. There are real costs associated with providing off-street parking. Taxpayers bear those costs when you do not have a paid parking management plan. We all know that our free off-street parking downtown is overused, and we have data in this presentation to support that. By overused, I mean the lack of available parking. And as a result of that, we see increased congestion downtown as people, quote, cruise for parking spots when they can't find parking at the paid off-street parking lots. Okay, parking management plans are how cities deal with this, and that's what we are bringing here today, a parking management plan. Okay, what is the state of our parking infrastructure? This catches a lot of people by surprise, but we have 1,097 street parking stalls in Sandpoint, and that's in downtown Sandpoint. That does not include the residential neighborhoods. That is just in our commercial A downtown core. And we have 505 off-street parking stalls across 5 city-owned lots. Those lots include the city lot across from Joel's, the city beach lot, which includes the smaller lot just before the bridge that you go under to get to City Beach. Used to be ITD property. That's now a city-owned parking lot, about 40 stalls there. That includes the Dock Street parking stalls. There's 45 parking stalls on Dock Street. That's the lot that serves Windbag Marina. And it includes the Sand Creek lot, formerly known as Gunnings Alley. That is 30 stalls that the city owns and maintains on what we now refer to as Farman's Landing, kind of behind the Panada. And it also includes about 9 stalls at the Ponderay Bay Trailhead, which are city-maintained stalls north of the Seasons of Sandpoint. So we have over 1,500 city-maintained parking stalls in the Sandpoint. 505 of them are off-street parking lot stalls. Just some photo evidence here. These pictures were taken between the City Beach lot and the city lot. The state of the infrastructure, it's quite frankly failing. We have stormwater issues. We are shedding, there's actually 0 stormwater treatment at the city lot or the City Beach lot. So all rainwater that falls in that lot washes directly into Sand Creek and to Lake Ponderay without any treatment whatsoever. An example of a modern effective stormwater treatment in public parking lots is what we have at Memorial Field. I call it the turtle farm. The little, the really beautiful swale in the middle of that parking lot, all stormwater goes into that and is treated before it's discharged into the lake. There's no stormwater treatment at the 300 stall City Beach parking lot at present. And these are the 2 most important numbers from our 2022 parking study. I'm going to let you read the captions here. This study was done over several months during the peak season in 2022. It was presented to City Council in November of 22, adopted, and 0 change has come out of that study in the last 2 years. Okay? That's why we're here today. We're trying to actually implement the recommendations of that study to resolve this problem. So what would a successful parking management plan do? Any guesses? I'll let any commissioners guess. Which of these numbers do we want to, how would we want to see these numbers change to better serve the people of Sandpoint and the surrounding areas? Mr. Torpy?
Shift the demand from off-street to on-street parking.
We want to increase this number because this is the number that everybody complains about in Sandpoint. The fact that 97% of the parking stalls in our off-street parking facilities are occupied for the entire peak season at noon. This is at the noon hour between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And everybody in this room knows that it's almost impossible to find parking at those stalls, at those parking lots. So the goal here is to increase the number of stalls in off-street parking facilities available to local and area resident pass holders. We're going to see a proposed parking pass available to local and area residents by incentivizing tourists and visitors to use abundantly available on-street stalls. There are 525 on-street stalls available at the 11 o'clock hour on weekend days during the summer. That's 50%, 49% of our on-street stalls are available in downtown. And people think, well, I can never find parking on the street in downtown Sandpoint. You can't find parking on First Avenue or Second Avenue in downtown Sandpoint because those are at the 90% occupancy level. But if you go out to Larch Street, if you go out to First Street, if you go out to Fourth or Fifth or even Third, there's abundantly available parking stalls. And we're going to look at a slide next that shows that. Okay, so the image on the left shows color-coded where parking stalls are available in downtown Sandpoint during the peak hour on summer weekends. Okay, the blue is 0 to 50% occupied. So more than half the parking stalls are available on summer weekends in the blue areas. Yellow, orange, and red, those are 75 to 100% occupied. So that the problem isn't availability of parking. The problem is that everybody expects to park within 50 feet of where they're trying to go. But when you go to Walmart, you're not parking 50 feet from the home goods section or the hardware section. You're parking approximately 800 feet from that and walking. But when you come to downtown Sandpoint, nobody wants to walk 800 feet to where they're going. And I actually went into GIS maps and calculated how far it is from the middle of the parking lot of Walmart to the back of the Walmart store, and it's 800 feet. That's approximately 3 city blocks. Okay, nobody expects to walk 3 city blocks when they come to Sandpoint. So our parking problem is this right here. We see our off-street facilities are 85 to 100% occupied during the summer months. Our on-street facilities are overwhelmingly unoccupied. Okay, so there's this 85% target occupancy. This is right out of our parking study from 2022. A parking system is generally considered to be at its effective capacity when occupancy reaches or exceeds 85% in the peak hour. When more than 85% of stalls are occupied, patrons or other users may be discouraged from visiting local land uses or may add to area congestion by circling the area in search of available spaces. Cruising, it's called. Go to City Beach on any summer day and you'll see over 100 cars just cruising around looking for parking stalls. Okay, that detracts from the park goer's experience. It creates more air pollution. It creates congestion and noise. And I've twice last summer saw trucks roll coal on park goers in the parking lot. Okay, that's sort of behavior is not what we want to encourage in Sandpoint. Another slide, this is just from our parking study, just the 2 graphs that are reflected in that last figure. You can see throughout the day on weekends in the summer, the occupancy at the off-street parking facilities downtown and the occupancy at the on-street parking facilities downtown. You'll notice that the lighter bars on the bottom are taller than the darker bars because the lighter bars are midweek. Midweek, there's more demand for on-street parking, but only slightly more demand. It goes from 50% to 57% occupied during the week. And on weekends, we actually see far more demand on the off-street lots downtown. So part of our proposal is going to be a system that uses kind of surge pricing, okay? So that during those peak demand periods on weekends downtown, we actually see the rates go up slightly for visitors, not for local pass holders, of course. Okay, turnover, there's no turnover enforcement in off-street parking downtown. That means that there is 24 hours free parking available at our off-street parking facilities, whereas most of the downtown street parking has 2, 3, or 4 hour time limits. And when you get out of that downtown core, there's unlimited street parking downtown as well. In other words, you can park beyond 4 hours without the fear of being ticketed. Okay, the recommendation you see there was right out of our parking study in 2022. The parking study recommended implementing a paid parking system for off-street parking to better allocate spaces away from off-street to on-street. Okay, there was a slide earlier that said free parking is not really free. So I worked with our engineering team who is overseeing a parking project right now. The mayor mentioned the kind of embarrassing state of our parking infrastructure. I don't know if you're aware, but last year we were working to resurface the city lot by Joel's. The current engineering estimate of that project is $400,000 or $3,305 per stall. There are 100 parking stalls there. That comes out to $40 per Sandpoint resident to resurface 121 of our 505 off-street parking stalls. Okay, that is being paid by Sandpoint residents. Sandpoint taxpayers are paying for that right now. But who's using that lot? It's not the people in this room because they can't find parking spots there. It's free, unlimited parking, and it's currently being nearly entirely occupied by people who work at downtown businesses, not by people who shop there or us who are coming into town to get tools from South Fork Hardware. The annual maintenance and replacement cost per stall is estimated at $575. That covers the cost of snow pine sweeping, crack sealing, seal coating, striping, lighting, and 175 of that 575 is the amortized cost of replacing each parking stall every 20 years. So this is a 20-year replacement schedule, which is when we should be repaving parking lots once every 20 years. It's been over 40 years since City Beach was repaved, and I could not find anything in the historical record of the city lot ever being repaved. So the total annual cost to the city and to the taxpayers of Sandpoint for our 505 parking stalls, off-street stalls, is $290,375. That's entirely borne by taxpayers right now. The people using these stalls overwhelmingly during the peak season are not contributing to that. So the idea that parking is free at present is just it's not true. These costs are real costs that have to be borne. And the state of our parking facilities is evidence that we have mostly deferred these costs over the last several decades. There hasn't been a genuine there hasn't been a funding mechanism to maintain them. So let's get into the actual proposed policy. We are proposing a parking management plan that applies to off-street parking lots only, not street parking, okay? It also includes I guess Dock Street is technically street parking. So we're also basically including the Windbag Marina parking stall in this parking management plan. The proposal is for a 2-hour base rate with dynamic pricing in the high demand lots, City Beach, Sand Creek, and Dock Street. $16 max per day. This is very standard. You see this in cities all over the country. $20 at Dock Street. And the incentive there is to keep those slips primarily available for Windbag Marina users. So we want to create a stronger disincentive for park goers to park at Dock Street. And you'll see that there's a proposed pass that would be available to Marina slip holders that would give them unlimited parking. So we have affordable passes. We're talking about $10 a year for residents, and you'll see the proposed fee schedule on the next slide, a $20 pass for anybody else who wants to buy a pass. So city residents would pay $10 for 2 hours of free parking per day at city facilities. Non-residents can buy a pass for $20. Okay, and there's a very strict rule that we are bound to at the majority of our off-street parking facilities. That over 300 of our stalls are within what is called a Land Water Conservation Fund boundary. So in the past, the city has received hundreds of thousands of dollars of federal grant funds to provide park amenities and parking facilities at City Beach and Windbag Marina. The rules under which we are bound from having received that grant money in the past is that if we provide parking passes, we cannot give a particular group free access to parking and charge any other group. And any other group cannot be charged more than twice what one group is charged. So what that means is if we offer city residents a $10 pass, we have to make a $20 pass available to non-residents. And it can't say that it can only be from Bonner County. So you might say, well, why don't, Spokane people are just going to buy a $20 pass and then they get free parking every day in our city lots. Yeah, they do. But we are under federal regulations with 300 of our 500 off-street parking stalls. So that's true. But I'm guessing that most of the people driving down from Calgary or over from Seattle or Spokane don't know that they can go online and buy a parking pass that gets them free parking daily. They're going to pay from the moment they arrive, is my prediction. So we estimate that this will generate over $300,000 annually for maintenance and improvement of our parking facilities and the public amenities that those parking facilities serve. So that's based on usage rates from our parking study, actually. There's numbers behind all these calculations. So here's the fee schedule we're proposing. Very simple. If council were to adopt this or whatever version of this we end up proposing after public engagement, that this would go into our city's fee schedule, and we would come up with a solution, a technology solution for how people can buy these passes, and there we go. Okay, so we're looking at a $10 city resident pass, a $20 city non-city resident pass for 2 hours of free parking at all parking lots for a single car. A $200 commercial A district business pass. This is for businesses that want their employees to have access to a city lot. Remember, there are hundreds of no time limit street stalls in our commercial area. The incentive we're trying to create here is to have employees of downtown businesses park 3 blocks away and walk to work, rather than parking a block away and taking up a valuable parking spot that shoppers would otherwise have access to. So a $200 commercial A business pass, a $100 pass for Windbag and City Beach slip occupants. Okay, we have around 200 slips at our Windbag and City Beach marinas. Those slips are heavily subsidized right now. They go for $700 to city residents. Just around the corner in the Sand Creek Marina, those slips are $2,800. So this is an additional $100 that we'd be asking slip lessees, who are literally lottery winners, because we'd have to do a lottery every year for the extremely high demand for city-owned boat slips. We would be asking them to buy a $100 parking pass in addition to their $700 boat slip, so that they get unlimited parking. But what's the trade-off? There's going to be more parking available if we start charging tourists for parking. Right now, we have slip lessees at City Beach tell us constantly, I have to get there before 9 a.m. or I cannot get a boat slip. We do not want that to be the case. We want there to be more stalls available for the people who use those boat slips. And charging for them is the only way we can figure out how to do that. Okay, and then this is actually the last one up there is already in our fee schedule. We already have a pass that we sell to people who live in the commercial A district and need a street parking spot and don't want to get a ticket from the police for parking on the street for more than 4 hours. Okay, it's currently $340. We don't sell many of them because not a lot of people live in the commercial A district. So that would give you unlimited on-street and off-street parking downtown. But to be eligible for that pass, you have to live at an address that is within the commercial zone. Okay. And then everybody else who doesn't have a pass would pay when they get to a city lot, $2 with $3 during peak season on weekends at the waterfront lots. That would include Sand Creek, City Beach, and Dock Street and Ponderay Bay Trail. Okay. The principle, the idea here is that local residents can purchase a low-cost pass. Downtown businesses and employees and their employees can purchase passes for all-day parking if they need that convenience of parking a block from work and not having to park 3 or 4 blocks from work. Marina slip holders and full-time downtown residents can access special parking permits. And the vast majority of revenue generated from this will be paid by tourists and visitors who don't have these parking passes, shifting the financial burden of maintaining our infrastructure away from local users and onto those who place the greatest wear and tear on our facilities. Okay, some myths that have been out there. Paid parking will restrict access to City Beach. We know right now that there is no access to City Beach parking lot during peak summer months. We know that there are a total of 14 parking stalls across all 505 off-street parking spaces available at noon on weekends in summer. Attaching a price to that valuable asset will increase availability. And if you are local who has a parking pass, or even a non-local who has a parking pass, you will have access for free for at least 2 hours at those facilities. Okay, this is just a revenue grab. We're not looking to line our pockets or increase general fund slush fund that we can blow on other amenities. We have talked about this internally. The mayor agrees. We already have a dedicated parking improvement fund at the city. There's almost no money in it. There's a total of like $20,000 in it over 20 years of, a handful of developers paying those in lieu fees that we've seen in the past. We want to increase revenues into the parking improvement fund and possibly the parks capital improvement fund, so that people who park at City Beach can start contributing to the maintenance and improvements of other park amenities at City Beach. Currently, that entire burden is being borne by marina slip owners. That's the other thing. Marina slip owners are paying their marina rental rates. That goes into the Parks Capital Improvement Fund. I want to see more of that marina slip revenue go into a marina improvement fund, so that we're using slip lessees dollars to improve the marina, not the rest of our parks facilities, who the people using them are not helping pay for them right now because they're not city residents. Okay, the city is privatizing public parking. That's just false, or privatizing the park. The city retains full ownership and control, and revenue goes right back into public infrastructure. So there's just no truth to this idea of privatization. Okay, what if we don't have a paid parking system? It's very simple. We'll continue having to divert funds from other infrastructure projects. The $400,000 going towards resurfacing our city lot is a perfect example of that. That's $400,000 we're not putting towards streets or sidewalks. Honestly, the second bullet point here is kind of a joke. We can't increase local taxes. We have no authority to do that. Or we just allow our facilities to continue to deteriorate. Okay, the City Beach lot was handed over to the city of Sandpoint in 1986 from the Lions Club, and we have not resurfaced it since. That was 39 years ago. So there's just been no funding mechanism to do that. Paid parking ensures tourists and non-residents contribute to infrastructure they use. Okay, we're getting into our final couple slides here, then we'll open it up for questions. Just a kind of a conclusion here. A paid parking system improves parking availability and turnover, ensuring that there are more likely to be spots available at our valuable off-street parking areas. It generates stable, dedicated funding for maintenance and upgrades. It reduces congestion because people are not going to come in, drive around the city lot 5 or 6 times, and then leave. They're either going to come in and find a spot because it's available, or they're going to go look for a free street parking spot. Supports Sandpoint's long-term economic vitality, and it supports Chapter 6, Goal 1A from our recently adopted comp plan, which very clearly says that the goal and objective is to enhance access to businesses, shops, restaurants, and other destinations through parking management solutions. Okay, I'm open to hearing from the public and from this commission what other solutions there might be out there for managing parking. But this is the one that cities use around the world. Okay, so what are the next steps? A couple historic photos here showing paid parking in downtown Sandpoint. Community engagement, that's what we're doing now. We invited members of the public to come tonight. We are eager to have people attend. A survey has already been drafted. Look for that in the next month. And there will be presentations to the Parks and Rec, the Ped Bike, sustainability committees, and then ultimately a presentation to City Council after all that public engagement and input has been taken from the public. Implementation, this is not something we're just gonna, snap our fingers and it's done. We have to go out and find a technology solution for this. I guarantee they won't be the old parking meters we had in the 1950s. Okay, there's going to be a technology solution here with, license plate reader technology, kiosk with QR codes and scans. You get a permit on your phone, you register your license plate. It's going to be hopefully fairly seamless. And we also don't want a system that requires 2 or 3 police officers going around writing tickets all day. The mayor has made that very clear. We can't have our police going around writing parking tickets. This has to be a fairly self-sufficient system. And then, of course, constantly reviewing and monitoring how the system is going, determining whether the fees are correct, adjusting them if necessary. If we're not achieving our primary objective of increasing and improving access for the primary users of these parking facilities, that means we need to reassess. Okay. There's Larson's, probably 1940s, 50s, parking meter in front. Paid parking is just something the city abandoned in the last 25 years. And the quality and the state of our infrastructure is evidence of what happens when you abandon paid parking. It's not turned out well. We're diverting funds away from other really important infrastructure projects to repave parking lots that should be self-sustaining. Okay. I'm happy to take questions, and then I think, Commissioner, you're talking about opening up for comments from the public, and then anybody from the public can speak to staff outside of this meeting as well.
Thank you very much.
Happy to back it up to any slides if you have questions about any figures you saw.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, questions for city staff? Fire away.
Okay, well, I've got several, but I'll start with one. Is Lakeview boat ramp over there going to be part of this process for?
This proposal is only for parking facilities within the commercial A district downtown, which is our downtown commercial core.
Because that's one that's also an issue.
Yes, and I will say that there's been discussion of paid boat launching as well. That's not part of this presentation, but it kind of makes sense if we are going to go that path to have that built in with the paid parking at City Beach in particular. But that would also probably require us to implement some sort of technology solution at Memorial Field as well, because that If we charge for boat launching at City Beach, it would dramatically increase the amount of boat launching at Memorial Field if we didn't also charge there.
And because that leads to my next question is that for the boat launch at City Beach, how's that going to work for paying because you're going in with not only a car, but a trailer?
I think a final version of this is likely going to include an additional fee for boat launching at City Beach as well. I was contacted by a member of the Waterways Improvement Fund Advisory Committee for District 1, North Idaho, the North Idaho Region 1 District. And there is great interest at the state level for the city of Sandpoint to actually start charging boat launch fees at our 2 public boat launches. Kootenai County and Coeur d'Alene have gone entirely to charging for boat launching at county and city boat launch facilities. And the city of Coeur d'Alene has generated over $100,000 a year in boat launch fees at their public boat launches in Coeur d'Alene. Not that that's about the money, but everybody in here knows that when 30 or 40 boat trailers are parked at City Beach, that's roughly 90 or 100 parking spots that are no longer usable by beachgoers. So we're one of the last counties in the state that isn't charging for boat launch at public boat launch facilities. And statewide, they're trying to push us in that direction because it actually creates more revenue for maintaining boat launch facilities and improving the experience for those using them. The expectation is that you pay to launch your boat. You pay to launch in Dover, you pay to launch in Laclede, I don't know about Laclede, you pay to launch in Hope. Those marinas all charge around $20 for a boat launch fee. But that hasn't been incorporated into this first draft of the parking management plan. But it's a good question, Wayne.
I'll save my next one for a little later.
Oh, well,
Go ahead.
anyway, go ahead.
I too have several questions. I'll ask one. Jason, at the end of the report by the consultant, you had your financial analysis summarized. And my question has to do with costs other than the amortized 20-year resurfacing and the annual maintenance costs per parking spot. Are there, or do you expect there to be any enforcement costs, administrative costs, the initial capital costs for the technology and other equipment that needs to be somehow budgeted? Or what's the thought was that whatever we're going to get out of this thing is better than nothing, and we'll just, come up with any extra money we need through any other revenue source?
Well, the cost of maintaining a parking management plan would have to be sustained through the revenues that parking management plan generates in the future. The initial startup costs would have to be budgeted out of either our existing parking improvement fund or the general fund downtown. We like I mentioned, we have something like $60,000 in the parking improvement fund from in lieu fees paid over the decades. There just haven't been a lot of those in lieu fees paid, so that could be a potential funding mechanism for getting something like this off the ground. I have no idea what it costs. This is something that we are at the policy stage right now. If a policy is agreed upon and adopted, the next step would be to go out and get proposals and find, a half a dozen firms bid on a project like this and say it'll cost X dollars to implement this. You want gates here, you want kiosks here. I do not know what those costs will be. We would have to get proposals from the private sector for implementation and then choose one and budget it for fiscal year 26, let's say, if that's the timeline we're on. So I do not know what those costs are, but of course the ongoing operation of the plan would be funded out of parking revenues. It wouldn't divert from general fund.
And would that include like enforcement where people, don't pay?
Well, here's the thing about enforcement. Enforcement of our parking limits downtown right now doesn't pay into the parking improvement fund. It plays into the police fund. The police are the ones doing the enforcing. So they send community resource officers down to write parking tickets and police collect the revenue on that. So I'd have to duke it out with the police chief about who gets those revenues from enforcement if tickets are issued. But I'm pretty sure if it's police issuing the tickets, police are going to get those revenues.
But if the police decide not to because they're busy doing other police things, then a lot of
Police
people are
loves
not going to be
issuing
paying their.
tickets because it's easy revenue for the police department.
Oh,
And our
if-
community resource officers, two community resource officers a day
Okay.
patrol downtown streets currently doing parking enforcement. So that's something that we're currently doing. We just don't have paid parking enforcement because we don't have paid parking. But our 2, 3, 4 hour, they go out and shock tires, and if they come back and they've been there more than their allowed time, they issue parking tickets presently. So the goal here is to not dramatically increase the amount of manpower needed for enforcement. And that's where the technology comes in. Through, for example, LPRs, license plate readers, so that when you pull up, if you're registered in the system, the gate opens and you don't pay. If you're not, you have to pull a ticket and you pay. That's the kind of technology that cities are using these days, not relying on humans going out and, looking at a tablet of paper and writing tickets.
Chalking tires.
Yeah.
I have two questions. They're kind of related. One, is my understanding correct that when the size of the parking structure at the new hotel was reduced, that was nothing that even a decision needed to be made on? That was already existing in code. That was their right to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, that was something that honestly, I'm surprised they didn't propose it from the beginning, because the numbers that were applied are just from a 1980s engineering manual that we happen to have adopted sometime in the past. But the code allows for a parking demand study to be done and for in lieu payments to be paid, and they ultimately opted for a combination of those two options. So the number of parking spots that are now required are based on the actual level of demand that was estimated by the engineering firm that the city required them to provide. So that was something they could have done a year and a half ago, a year ago. And both of those are allowed by right in code.
Then my other question, and we probably don't know the answer to this, but maybe discussions. Do we know if the new hotel, the parking structure they're building, will that be available to the general public, and will it be a pay?
That's a good question. And I know I took my mother-in-law for a birthday dinner at Beverly's at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. And I know that parking structure, anybody can go in there and pay $10 to park, right? But they also have 7 levels of structured parking there. It's what we would call an overparked hotel. They have far more parking than they ever need. So they invite the public to come use it. I'm not sure if that was because of zoning ordinances in Coeur d'Alene back in the 90s when that hotel was built, but with 7 levels of structured parking, the hotel never needs all 7 levels of structured parking. So it becomes it becomes a spillover lot for City Beach in Coeur d'Alene and downtown shoppers. So the hotel at one point was probably required to build 7 levels of parking. They never need 7 levels of parking. When I went there around Christmas with my mother-in-law and my daughter and wife, after the 3rd level, there were 4 levels of unused parking spaces at the holiday season. So it was super easy to get parking there, and I paid my $10 and it was used that way. But I think the hotel's goal was to provide the number of parking spaces that the hotel would need. And if there are seasons during which they don't need their 145 parking spaces, I do not know. That would be a question for the hotel developers, whether they intended for that to be spillover. But I can guarantee you, City Beach will always be a cheaper option than parking at the hotel if you have a choice between the two, especially if you're a pass holder where it's free at City Beach.
Thank you. Commissioners, unless we have any other pressing questions, I would like to get to public comment as quickly as possible so people don't have to sit too long.
I've got lots of questions, but nothing pressing.
Okay, we can add them later. We can get to them later. Is that okay?
Appreciate it.
Mose?
Just one
Okay.
question. Where do we come up with the price, the fee structure,
The $2 and $3.
or
Just-
the
Well, I mean,
pass, like the 10 or 20?
in a way, we kind of backed into it because we know what the cost is, right? So we used a lot of data from the parking study. We know how many parking spaces there are, 505. We know how much of that is being occupied currently. So in fact, in the proposal in your staff packet tonight, there's a lot more numbers about how we arrived at the $290,000 and how we arrived at the $352,000 if demand doesn't change, or $323,000 if demand does decrease because of paid parking. So I don't know, Most, if you saw the proposal, but it goes into a lot more detail than this PowerPoint did as far as the estimates of what we might earn at $2 and $3 an hour. Okay, so there were 2 estimates. One, if implementing paid parking led to no change in the occupancy rates, which by the way is not what we want. We want occupancy rates to decrease at these off-street parking facilities. Then we would earn, I think the number was like $365,000 or something. But that's unrealistic because as soon as something goes from $0 to $2, fewer people are going to be willing to use it. So we did what's called an elasticity estimate, and based on actual studies out there that have been done on how people respond to changes in price of parking. That number fell from like 360 something down to 320 something. So our estimate is that we'll earn around $320,000 a year in revenues from this program. With the vast majority, in your staff report, it also broke that down to how much of that would come from parking passes versus how much of that would come from non-pass holders. And it's about 80% would come from non-pass holders. Only about 20% would come from people who take the very small step of buying a $10 or $20 parking pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And commissioners, we'll have plenty of opportunity later to ask more questions if we need to, but I would like to get the patient public on record here if we could.
And
So-
Mr. Commissioner, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but if members of the public want to reference something, I'll be happy to share it again. So, but if I stop sharing my screen, then people watching on Zoom will actually be able to see all of your lovely faces.
All right. And as I said, as this is public comment, normally these things are divided into pro, for or against, but that's not where we're at with this because there is no proposal at this point. This is to get additional public input before the city were to come to any conclusions. And I will start with, do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to comment at this time?
We do, Mr. Chair. We have Jennifer Cox.
Jennifer, the floor is yours. Are you seeing her?
Not.
Jennifer, we're not hearing you. I don't know if you are muted or not. Oh. Oh, okay.
Whoever. In person.
There you go. Oops. Hold on now. I have an echo, so let me hear you.
Hang on just a moment. We are hearing you, but with a terrible echo. Can that be something we get rectified?
Is anybody in the room on this meeting on Zoom? If so, it's often because the microphone is not muted.
Oh, wait, I have an idea.
Unmuted.
Does anybody, have it on their mobile device? Because that could be causing it. Let's try it
Perhaps-
again.
Perhaps Jennifer can mute her computer while she speaks. That might help.
I'm no longer seeing Jennifer on our list of attendees.
Okay. Well, if you are still there, Jennifer, we'll go through with the public that is here and we'll come back to you if indeed you are able to, we are able to make things work. Okay, who in the public would like to, well, we have our little sheets of paper. We will read them off. Who's speaking for us first?
We do have Barbara Little.
Pressure's on.
Really? I didn't expect to have to go first. Um, I'm Barbara Little. I live on Poplar Street here in town, and so I often don't use parking. My biggest concern is the City Beach parking. If I understand things correctly, the hotel is going to have way more people there that in the hotel, in the restaurant, and in the event center. And they're going to spill over parking into City Beach. And so is there a way to prevent them? Can there be no parking for hotel and restaurant people in the City Beach parking? Because the only time I use parking downtown is to come to City Beach with my grandchildren. And we've already lost access to Schweitzer now with $150 day passes to go skiing there. And so this lake is one of the few benefits that residents have. And if you live on a fixed income, the $10, that doesn't bother me. It's not being able to get access to parking when I need it specifically for City Beach. There are many residents in town who don't have access to any other recreation except what they can get at City Beach. And what happens if the hotel patrons or hotel staff starts telling patrons, well, you can go online and get a $20 pass for the whole time you're here, and then they just go and park at City Beach instead of in the lot that's going to fill up, because when they have a wedding and there are 100 guests and they have 147 spots, then there's going to be overflow into City Beach. And so that de facto makes the hotel guests have more access to something that is by rights as residents, our one place where we can have recreation in the summer. And maybe it would be better to have 4 hours free for residents at City Beach, because you're going to go for 2 hours and then how much more do you pay then? And then you got to pack up all your grandkids and get them out before you get a parking ticket. Or how does the rest of the parking go? So I'm fine with maintenance. I think it's great to take care of the things. And like I said, I walk into town for most everything I need, but City Beach is the one place I need parking. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And concrete suggestion there of lengthening that time for local citizens.
And I am taking notes on everybody's comments tonight.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Jennifer Alderman Brown.
Jennifer Alderman Brown, city resident, Bonner County born and raised. I think I would reiterate a lot of what Barbara said prior, that 2 hours downtown is not enough time to spend at the beach when you're down there with your kids or your grandkids. So maybe lengthening that time would be appropriate. It just seems as if county residents that don't have the money for beachfront property are getting shut out of every other opportunity to access the gems of our area. And like she said, by being a resident, we should have access to those places. So that is my concern, is that we make sure that those that have less money still have availability to the outdoor recreation that North Idaho is known for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nancy Hastings.
Good evening, I'm Nancy Hastings and I am a resident of the city of Sandpoint. The mayor was here earlier and spoke about the parking stress. And today we had heard of proposals for the city's new rush to bring parking meters, parking tolls to our city, at City Beach and elsewhere. But what has brought on this sudden rush to set up the paid parking at City Beach, we're all wondering. And it seems like the hotel that was approved by planning and zoning last June, the hotel came before you and promised 240 parking spaces. And then suddenly, just right up before Christmas, somebody at the city staff decided they would sell off the City Beach, all that, they would sell off the parking and give them the allowance to go ahead and provide only 140. So they were basically allowed to sell off 100 places of our City Beach parking. Now, I'm not sure if obviously the staff is now saying, well, this is city code, that it was in place and they would have been able to take this. And they probably knew that already. And so you can get any kind of consultant to say whatever you want. If you're going to pay these consulting groups that they had come in to do a parking survey, we all know that if you pay enough money, you can get any consulting group to say whatever you want them to say. And so if there is this code that they were able to use to basically downgrade the parking availability for their guests, they're going to have 180 rooms, 2 restaurants over 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, and also a 100+ person convention center. And the Planning and Zoning Committee approved this based on the concern of also the parking spaces. And they were given this permit only based on this 240. And now there's some loophole that they're able to use to get around that. If you talk about good planning worldwide and nationwide, or in our continent and of tourist towns, if you've ever been to Whistler, in Canada, they have the developers pay for all the parking that's necessary. And yes, that's great that you were able to use the Coeur d'Alene Resort to park to access their restaurant, obviously. And that's what's necessary. And I don't believe that, yes, we should be giving up 100 parking spaces for this new lodge. And then what are you going to do about overnight guests? Are they going to be allowed to? They have only 140 parking spaces, and each of those 180 rooms are even filled. There's going to be, where are they going to park overnight? Are they going to park in the city beach parking lot? Because we've usually not been allowed to have overnight parking in there. So if there's this loophole of a code, it needs to change, because these permits were issued with them promising one thing, and suddenly they're allowed to just buy their way out of it, inconveniencing a whole lot of citizens. And so I would encourage the planning and zoning to look into this, because there should be no loophole once a permit is established. And it sounds like it was a 1980s code or something, but so there needs to be updates on those codes, and there needs to be, they need to actually put in the amount of parking for these private developments that are necessary and what they promised. So I would encourage you to do this, and I do believe there needs to be some parking fees. A new city lot needs to be made, and probably a 2 to 3 story one, so that we have enough room. But we also need to make these new developers pay for their parking.
Thank you. Do we have, who's next?
We have Jennifer Wurst next.
Hi, Jennifer Wurz. I am a local downtown resident. Not as well spoken, but I heard about this probably like a lot of people here through the reader. I don't mind paying for parking. I'm totally good with that. I hear the free and I know it's not free. So I just, during this time, came up with some ideas. So what if one way to reduce the demand for downtown was to provide some sort of beach shuttle, so that people could park a little further away, and we were still able to bring our kids and our coolers and that sort of stuff, and do a more frequent trip around town and deliver people to the beach. The other idea I thought was, when I go down and I see these double parking places for trailers with trucks, I'm assuming the people that have the physical ability to launch a boat could launch their boat, take their truck and their trailer up to the train station and walk down. Now, I can't walk that far, and that's part of my concern about the parking space. There's those of us that have some mobility issues. So I just thought, well, that might be a way, and they can walk back down and catch their boat. Also, parking validation by shopkeepers. I don't know how that would work. And then also, most big cities have apps for parking that I can extend my parking on my phone. And I think the manpower that it would take to issue tickets is ridiculous. It's ineffective. It's not very efficient. You know, if we have guests or from out of town and they're having dinner, they're utilizing our businesses and eating, they can't get up and move their car. How are, they're just gonna get a ticket? I think we really need to look into getting a more sophisticated and more current type of method to get them to pay. And I'm sure if any of you have been to a lot of the bigger city parking spaces, you would see that. And I think that's where all my suggestions, but I appreciate you hearing from us. And I do think it is being rushed, like Nancy said, and that this deserves a lot more of the attention of the public. And I would really hope you take that. Probably need to rent the Hive when you let everybody know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Catherine Larson.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for all the work that you put into doing this. I know it's not easy to try to figure out models and to look at how to manage funding and how to manage maintenance. It's not easy, so thank you for doing that. I live in Sagal, but Sandpoint is my city. It's 4 miles away. I usually ride my bike in. I try in the summer not to come into town at all. I am a volunteer at the Artworks Gallery, so we've got 2 parking spaces out back. But anyway, I look at this and think, okay, so one question is, can you put the pricing for all of Bonner County and make it $20? Because $20 for a year, and then you've got $40 for out of state. So that's just one thing to think about, because I think if you modeled that, the income would make more sense. And especially because if you're talking about a $16 per day or $20 per day for all-day parking, then all residents from out of town would just buy the annual pass. And then you lose all that revenue for the second day. So I would encourage you to do a little bit more modeling on that kind of thing to say, how do we keep it low for our residents, but ensure that we're not limiting the income from out of state. The other thing is VRBOs and Airbnbs. Huge issue. I mean, we've got models with Aspen and other tourist towns on how we price locals out of the market. And so I would encourage it also to be for a license plate. Maybe it's for 2, if you buy a $20 pass, you get 2 cars. License plates, so that VRBO owners can't just hand their pass to whatever residents are coming, staying for the weekends. And then there was one other thing, but I can't remember what it was. So anyway, thank you.
If you stick around to the end, there will be another opportunity if you remember that other. And thank you much.
Next, we have Glenn Lefebvre.
Thank you, commissioners. Thanks, Jason. Glenn LaFay, city resident, 59 years. You do the math on when that year was. One thing I wanted to bring up is like, what has the whole process taken in consideration? You mentioned LPRs, license plate readers. Wouldn't that be okay to allow city residents free passport, Bonner County residents? I mean, it's easy enough to read a 7B plate. And then up the prices on the outsiders. The untapped resource there for us as far as revenue from out-of-state commerce and people coming into town, I think would be a fantastic way to do that. And that, allows the people of Sandpoint and Bonner County to still access without having to pay the fee. That LPR, I think, is a great idea. I have questions about enforcement, how that's going to be enforced. But with the lack of people, the resources, I guess, as you said, the city of Sandpoint Police Department is taking care of that. But I don't see that being that. I mean, they're strapped as it is, as I can tell. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I think that LPR is a great idea. But I don't think that we as residents should be charged to use a beach that we've traditionally been able to access free for so many years. Another thing I mentioned is about Hope not being, or being paid. You have to pay to launch your boat there.
Was I mistaken about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, the Hope launch is free right now. Also Trestle Creek and Pringle Park. Those are all accessible right now, free parking, very limited on 2 of them, and even Hope Boat Basin is limited. So I think with charging extra for boats in the city could cause an issue with glut. I mean, we have issues with people in boats right now. I mean, through the peak months, it's hard to find a spot anywhere to launch your boat. If you're not early, I myself, my home base is Memorial Field, so I'll go down there and launch my boat there early. And sometimes in the afternoon when people get off the water, you can go down there and do some late night fishing. But access is an issue, I think, and I totally am down for payment of charging out-of-state residents. And I think if we're going to put up a kiosk and a gate, that LPR is the way to keep this from going down. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And then I have concerns with like what other people brought up as well about the hotel and that issue there. So that's already been explained, and I agree wholeheartedly with a couple of the comments that came up in here. That's all I have, just suggestions. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Katie Hall.
Hello, my name is Katie. I'm here with my husband and my little girl, and on behalf, and actually some of them showed up tonight and probably had to leave early with their kids, but on behalf of a lot of moms and families that I've talked to that would be here except they're home nursing infants and getting dinner on the table and putting kids to bed. So this is my first time to a meeting. I honestly, I don't even know, is this a city council meeting or what is this called? Well, whatever it is, because it sounded like, oh no, and then it'll go to city council. Well, I'm here to tell you my opinion. So when this, was brought to my attention, it was kind of like, oh, just kind of made me cringe. So I guess I'll bring a little bit of my, just the sort of the feel, I guess, that maybe the families, I think, are feeling about just being concerned, and I appreciate all of that makes sense. Obviously, all these places do need to be updated. I don't claim to know how the city gets its money and where it goes. This is very new to me. But I do know when I first came to Sandpoint, it was like, man, this is like a gem. And the fact, like, I came from Missouri and we had like a nasty mud bottom lake, and they charged you $5 to get into this dirty beach that was just like full of people. And then they wouldn't let you use the rest of the lake. If you tried to swim off of anywhere else, the rangers who you paid money to support would come and tell you couldn't do that. So when I came here and was like, and saw the lake and could just get in clean water and show up, it just, in a way, it felt like something from an era gone by. And I think that's the thing that I think families value that live here. It's hard for young families, and there's a lot of young families that live here. And the reason is because of that feel, and that Sandpoint has a local community vibe. It's not just a cool mountain resort town. I've been through a lot of those. My husband and I traveled for work a lot. I've been to, through Telluride and Vail and Tahoe and Jackson Hole and Whitefish, Montana, where I know that the hotel is from. And frankly, I wouldn't want to live in any of those places, and I couldn't afford to live in any of those places. And I think that modeling is good, but it's also kind of like what's special about Sandpoint. And it's good to take examples from other cities, but it's also like, do we want to be that other city? Is that the kind of city we want to be? And I also, I saw on the demographics report that, the income, the median income and the median home price here is hard. It's skewed. I took a phone shot of it. I mean, you guys all know it. $410,000, which is 24% higher than state median for home value. And median household income is $60,000, which is 14% lower than state median. So I think for the families that are trying to live here, it's kind of just a blow to think, man, it's gonna be that thing where I have to figure out how to, if I pass my 2 hours, even the 10, $20, that's great. I do like the suggestions made by some of the other people of like maybe a better way to equalize that, and then, whatever they said. But trying to go, oh man, if we stay a little longer, I'm gonna have to go and pay. And for a lot of families here, paying $6, extra, $9 extra, it's not actually doable. And moms take their kids to the beach like every day of the week. That's literally what we do in the summertime. And so I would just like to see that sort of value really taken into consideration, that value for what we want Sandpoint to remain to be. Because when I came and I could get in the water and it just, I mean, I'm like, you just could just come and park and get in. It just felt like this is how the world should be. And if there's any way or any other way to get money to keep it that way, I would love that. Don't get me wrong. I understand growth is inevitable and important. I don't have a problem with development. I just want us to make sure we're considering and prioritizing the local community, which it sounds like is part of the intention. I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost. I also did, the numbers of the hotel do concern me, and it also, again, I'm very new to this. Everything I've heard today is what I know. But you said there was some kind of, or maybe it was the mayor that said there was some kind of exemption or something where a lot of business owners were allowed to not have to build parking. And I feel like that is, if I'm hearing that right, that's been a historical thing, and maybe that's been good in other ways, but that may have also be part of our problem now. And so maybe that's something we shouldn't allow businesses to continue to do, especially on those beautiful places. I called Best Western today, asked how many hotel rooms do you have? 50. How many parking spots do you have? About 50. Sorry, it's me. And she was like, in the summertime, it's jam packed. I know the reader, somebody had said those parking spaces are hardly ever full. She said it's jam packed and they have a really hard time with parking there. And so I just want to make sure the number of hotel rooms is actually can accommodate how many people they're going to have there. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Victoria Quinn.
Victoria? Perhaps they had to leave.
Okay, we have
Hold on.
Monica Gunter.
Hi, everybody. Monica Gunner, and I live in Sagal and raised here from forever. And I didn't come here to talk about this, but when the mayor commented before that outlying areas, anybody outside the city of Sandpoint did not contribute to the city of Sandpoint, all Bonner County residents do not contribute to the city of Sandpoint, that blew my mind. That is so wrong. That is so wrong, and it was wrong for him to say that. It angered me so much. So number one, Mayor, shame on you. Bonner County residents all contribute to the city of Sandpoint. Always have, always will. The city beach should be first and foremost available to city and Bonner County residents. Number one priority. If you've got a 7B license plate, you should be able to park at the city beach over anybody with a Washington license plate or any other license plate. That's just the way it should be. Not saying don't let them in, but they should be the ones being charged to park at the city beach, not or sit within the city of Sandpoint. I liked the recommendation that all Bonner County residents pay the same yearly fee, whether it's $10, $15, $20, all Bonner County, not just the city of Sandpoint, it's all of ours. And anybody else that does not have a 7B plate should not be allowed to buy those cheaper parking tickets. They should pay daily the rate. So anybody coming to this fancy motel shouldn't get deals for parking. They should have to pay the everyday rate that everybody else coming into town has to pay, not the 7B people. We all deserve it. Bonner County deserves to park at that city beach. They deserve to launch their boat at that city beach. It's just wrong not to charge. I have no problem paying, but since I live 6 miles south of Sandpoint, and I don't contribute apparently to the city of Sandpoint, I just don't believe in that. I think all of Bonner County should be available to use that for the same price. And like I say, I don't mind paying a little bit of a fee because I think we do need to upgrade our parking, but make it all even for 7B people.
Next. That's it. Is there anybody that didn't sign up that would like to say a few words? And you'll have to fill out a little form, but you can do that. You can do it after the fact as long as you do it.
My name is Will. I think a lot of people are mentioning the 4-hour or the 2-hour limit, and I think 2 hours is too little for people with children. I mean, I go there with my kids, and we stay there longer than 2 hours. I do think that people can get to the park without driving to the park, and I think part of Jason's presentation was to move people away from the city lots to off-street parking. And so I think we should note that. Sorry.
No, excuse me.
I also think that a lot of people missed the point that there were federal grants that were given that said that we had to double the price for out of city residents from $10 to $20 or $20 to $40. But I was also going to ask Jason if he could consider increasing that fee, increasing the time allotment per resident, and also thinking about a mechanism to add those to your property taxes or something like that that's automatically paid by escrow or whatever else, just to make it more seamless, or in the way that the state parks have stickers or whatever, just some way that you can pay automatically every year so that you don't have to think about, crap, it's July 1st and it's the first time I'm using the park, so how do I pay for that? Thank you for the presentation.
Commissioner, I could actually respond. The question, there were several comments about, as Mr. Mitchell just said, the one price for everybody or free for some people and you only charge others. Just to clarify, the 303 parking stalls, actually plus 45, so 348 of our 505 parking stalls fall under Land Water Conservation Fund federal guidelines. So the rules, because the Windbag Marina and City Beach were largely funded, the improvements over the decades were funded with federal dollars. Okay, not taxpayer dollars. No, I shouldn't say not local taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars. All Americans are federal taxpayers. So the rules are, you can't, if you charge anybody for parking, you can't make it free for anybody else, because 2 times 0 is still 0. So if it's $0 for, let's say, city residents, you can charge twice that much for non-city residents, which is still 0. So you have to have some price associated with that parking. And then the maximum you can charge any one group is twice what you charge any other group. So it's not that city residents can get half or have to get half of what non-city residents get. We could say all of Bonner County pays, let's say $20, as I heard one person recommend, and then all other Americans have to have access to a $40 pass. If we say it's $20 for Bonner County residents, but nobody else can buy a pass, that's in violation of the regulations. We have to make a pass available under federal regulations to everybody else. And I learned about this when I was preparing this proposal. It's it's basically identical to what the city of Coeur d'Alene does. The city of Coeur d'Alene offers a $10.50 parking pass because their Memorial Park and McEwen Park are within LWCF boundaries as well, meaning that they're encumbered by these same rules. And they offer a $10.50 pass for Coeur d'Alene residents and a $21 pass for everybody else. So it's almost identical to what we're proposing here. But if we did offer a $20 pass to all Bonner County, $20 pass to all Bonner County residents, we would then have to offer a $40 pass. And it sounds, some people had valid concerns. If you're coming here for a week, why don't you just buy a $20 pass and have all day parking for that whole week? Well, you could do that. That is something that tourists coming to an Airbnb for a week could do. But what you can't do is the owner of an Airbnb or a VRBO, as one person said, cannot buy a pass that they can just give to anybody. These will be attached to license plates. That's the proposal. So, but the idea that we could say, if you have a 7B plate, the gate opens and you get them for free, then everybody else has to pay, that's just not allowed under LW. That would be the ideal situation here. That was literally the first thing that I proposed. But I talked to our grant administrator in Boise, and she pointed out that these rules were there. So this proposal has been run by her, and she said, go forth, do good things, literally her exact words. That is what's being proposed here is allowed, but not to say we can't either broaden the group that is included in that cheaper pass, or, instead of seeing Sandpoint and everybody else, we could do Bonner County and everybody else. But the most we can charge everybody else is twice what we charge locals, whether that's Sandpoint or Bonner County. Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Yes, it does. And we have a speaker on Zoom. Is that what?
I do have Jennifer Cox with her hand raised. See if we can get it to work now without any feedback.
Okay, let's see.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, and quite clearly.
Fantastic. Thank you for an opportunity to speak, especially via Zoom. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today. So I think the real issue here is the hotel and the in lieu code that enabled the city to, I'm going to say it again, give away 100 parking spaces for almost no money, which has a huge impact on Bonner County. So you've all said that we need to charge people for parking because there's not enough parking, right? And we've all experienced it. We've seen it with our own eyes. I can understand that. But the fact that you have a report that says they only need 144 parking spaces is clear to us, right? That's not right. Anyone can see that they need more than 144 parking spaces because we know today there's not enough spaces and they're going to be having 181 hotel rooms, 2 restaurants, shops, et cetera, right? So, and employees, fantastic employees. So the solution was to have them build a parking space or parking garage, right? For them to do it. $400,000 for this in lieu code is simply not sufficient. Any of you try to buy city, land on the water for $400,000 for that much space, and you can't do it. So my recommendation is that at one of the upcoming meetings that you're going to have on this topic, present on this in lieu code, make sure that we all understand it, understand how that report was accepted, who approved it. If there's no approval process, ask why not. And let us know if you're looking to change this code because it makes no sense. And finally, let us know if there's any opportunity to go back and change that decision. Because yes, we can put in shuttles and such to get people to the beach, which you might have to do, but all of that impacts us where the impact should have been on the resort, right? So that's my request. Please do a presentation on this code. Let us know who was responsible for approving the report, what our options are, and if we're looking to change the code. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any other speakers online? Okay, I think,
Got one over here.
oh, we do. Oh, yes. Have you filled out the little form? You can do it afterwards if you haven't, but be sure you do. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely.
So I run one of the few businesses in this city beach that's a private run business, the Lake Pondere Cruises. So I'm just a little concerned about if we have to charge for parking, like how personally how that works for me. Like, do I have to take that out of my bottom line at the end of the season, or is that like, are people willing to pay for that, or am I going to have to pay for that to get them to park in the parking lot that they already have problems parking in? I'm not saying I'm completely opposed to it. I just think it's something to think about. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, name?
Yes.
name
Oh,
for
yes,
the
and
record.
yes, sir, we didn't catch your name before you.
For the record.
Yes, for the record.
EJ, Eric Jensen.
Okay, and then you can fill a little form at your convenience, so we have that written record as well. Thank you.
Mr.
Yes?
Commissioner, I just want to point out one thing. There was a lot of concern about hotel use of the parking lot. The City Beach parking lot does not allow overnight parking. So unless the city council were to change that policy, hotel guests cannot park in the City Beach parking lot without being ticketed or towed at present. So that is, there is no overnight parking signs posted everywhere at City Beach. Whether that's being enforced right now is a question for the police chief, but overnight parking is not allowed by code at City Beach. The hotel is being required to provide the parking spots that are needed for the hotel under our city code. So if they aren't able to use those spots, they're not parking in City Beach overnight. If they do, we can enforce no parking overnight.
Well, yes, we're not. I don't think we're having an open discussion this evening, but thank you. But we will have a little more questions now from commissioners, and then you will have another opportunity to speak rather than just, and I don't know if any other committee meetings where this is being addressed, if those are going to be more just open forum discussion, because those are committees, not commissions. I don't know that one way or the other. The Parks Commission is more formal, the sustainability, and what's the other committee?
Pedestrian bicycle.
Pedestrian Bikeway Committee. Those may be another place for you to come. And ultimately, obviously, this decision will be made by the city council. Talk to your council people, and certainly be at that meeting for public testimony as well. That's where the decision would finally be made, and that's late February is the estimate at this time. So what's going to happen now is commissioners here, we're going to get a chance to ask some more questions of city staff. And at the end of that, you'll have another opportunity to speak. And we welcome you to stick around if you want to be a part of that. But I also realize you may have other commitments. So it is not rude if you need to leave, but we would love for you to stay. Okay, commissioners, questions? Should I start? Oh, we have,
I have one.
Grant?
No, go ahead.
We're a polite group. Go ahead.
Okay. Jason, I've heard you say, and I'll put it in my own words, that the point of charging for off-street parking in city parking lots is to achieve two objectives. One is to raise enough revenue to maintain those facilities so that they can be maintained, because they're not being maintained now because there's no revenue source to do so. That's the first objective. The second is to create an incentive or disincentive to park in those places and move to where parking currently is available, which is on-street parking. Am I right?
No, sir. The primary objective is to improve access for the primary users of those facilities, which are area residents. And the way we can do that is by creating an incentive structure that gets visitors who are forced to pay from the moment they arrive to possibly choose the free on-street parking. So those are secondary objectives. The primary objective is improving availability of parking spaces for the users.
By charging money to out-of-town or distant
Correct. So,
residents.
but those are means to an end. The end that we're looking for is to solve the known problem of zero occupancy, zero available spots, or close to zero, 14 out of 505
Right.
during those peak demand periods in the summer. When we hear, and we hear it at City Hall, we can't find parking at City Beach. The windbag slip owners are possibly the number one group concerned with this, because they say, I've heard from several, that if you don't get there by 9 a.m., you're not getting a parking spot near your slip.
So do we know, and I read through the report, but I can't remember reading it. Do we know if there are the kinds of people that you want to discourage from parking there that are parking there now? In other words, people that might be from Spokane or from Seattle or from Montana or from wherever, Alberta somewhere, are they the ones that are filling up spots in numbers great enough so that if they move someplace else, we won't be above the effective capacity of, in fact, we expect to achieve the objective, the main objective, which is to create greater availability to local residents. I think I heard you say that. Do we know that?
Your question is, do we know whether out-of-state users or out-of-area users make up a large enough proportion of the total users at City Beach and other parking lots that the city maintains, that charging those people will help resolve this problem? That's actually a question more for the audience. I know only anecdotally. Unfortunately, our 2022 parking study did not do a license plate assessment at City Beach. And I don't say that, I mean that seriously. I wish they had. That's data I wish that I had, but it's mostly anecdotal. From my own experience, I've lived in Sandpoint for 8 years full-time, and I ride downtown Sandpoint, and I ride my bike to City Beach in the summer. And in fact, I tend to avoid City Beach in the summer just because of the overuse that it gets from mostly out-of-area residents. So that evidence is anecdotal from my perspective, but I think the audience would probably be able to, give their own take on that.
Just like certainly so, but I'd also just like to follow up on my own question with a comment. I think that people who have traveled a long distance and wish to make themselves available, the beauty of this area and City Beach being one of those places, how much would you have to charge to discourage them from having the easiest experience to experience that beauty? I mean, how much would it cost someone who lives in Montana, travels here and is spending time in a motel, let's say, or travels from Spokane for the day? Would $16 or whatever it is for the day make them think, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go park 5 blocks away and schlep my buckets and coolers and chairs 5 blocks each direction. That's another thing that getting back to what you want to do, and is this going to do it? Those are my questions.
It's a great question. And that's the $16 a day. What you're proposing is basically saying, why have a maximum daily amount? Make them pay all day if they're going to be there all day. And totally open to that as a suggestion.
A little follow-up, if I may, and this is purely anecdotal, but it might be interesting because what your question was. For all of us here who have been at City Beach, on a peak weekend, July or August, how many of you would say that the cars parking at City Beach, more than half of them are not from Bonner County? How many think less than half of them are from out of Bonner County? We didn't have great participation there. But
I think it's probably Ida's favorite.
but those who did vote think that it's mostly out of Bonner County people. And it's purely anecdotal, but perception is important, that's for sure. Other questions?
I will ask the question. I was just curious, like the Averill Resort will hit 100% capacity a couple times. Like, what's the plan from their perspective
What's the plan
for parking? Because they don't want to have bad customer experience, right? They're going to have they're going to have to overnight park somewhere. Where are they going to park?
Well, there's unlimited overnight parking on city streets within 3 or 4 blocks across Bridge Street.
Okay.
So that would be an option. You go out by the hospital, all the parking around the hospital is free all day, unlimited. So that would be a
Schlep
solution.
your luggage up the street and
Could drop it off.
sort of
first.
interesting. And then, it just seems really unique, sort of interesting based on what we originally heard and then what it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a much different vision.
Yeah, there was about a 16-page parking study done, and I mean, the numbers it was posted on the December 18th council agenda, so it is available if you want to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
My summary of it would be that
Yeah.
hotel occupancy is not expected to be 100%
Right.
most
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
And another important consideration is that the conference season, and anybody who travels for conferences, is not July and August. Conference season is April and October around the United States. So periods where there might be a 300-person conference going on there are going to be periods where we have around 5% occupancy in our City Beach lot. And then that generates revenue because they would still be paying for parking in the City Beach lot, but there wouldn't be an imposition on local users because there's not local users that time of year.
So that was on the, which meeting was that? Just so I can go look it up.
December 18th.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Is that right? December 18th, I think.
One of the mid-December meetings. Second question was, could you pull up your demand map again with the?
Yep.
Thanks.
In fact, I'll pull up the study itself, which has the demand map in it.
And then my question's gonna be, what specifically within there would be sort of metered? Like, where's the thinking with that right now? By the way, thanks for the work on that. The report you guys sent in this, it's pretty solid.
So we're not adding meters to street parking.
Okay.
Let me see which
So it's
map this
literally
is. This
just
is
everything
on-street. So
off-street.
this is the one that was in my presentation,
Gotcha.
on-street occupancy on weekend peak hour.
Gotcha.
Okay, but then if we scroll down to off-street occupancy, this is weekday in the summer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more availability weekday than there is weekend. This is why we're proposing a $3 an hour fee on weekends and $2 on weekdays, because there's actually a lot more availability at City Beach on weekdays and the city lot is fuller on weekdays.
Because everybody's using the Coachella lot on
Exactly, all the
weekends.
Coachella employees park there.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is where we would be proposing paid parking, but not at the two lots you see on the left. The city doesn't own that property. Those are Idaho Transportation Department parking lots that the city manages. We're proposing keeping those free. That would create, those are generally empty. I mean, you can see 0 to 50% on peak hours on weekends. So people talked about parking out of town and like walking in or riding your bike in and parking out of town. That would be free parking just on the edge of town, right across Fifth Avenue. That's the area by Matchwood Brewing.
Yep.
So it's 5 blocks from First Avenue, 10-minute walk. But you can see that 95 to 100% occupancy at City Beach. And the yellow part of City Beach there is, of course, boat trailer parking, which is still between 75 and 85% occupied at peak hour in the summer. So the paid parking would apply at the 5 areas that you see to the east of those ITD lots. So City Lot is orange. Let me just highlight those. City Lot is right here. These are the 30 spots that the city maintains at Sand Creek. These are City Beach lots. All of this is City Beach. Quite a delay here. This is Dock Street. And then you've got the Ponderay Bay Trail lot.
Yep.
Now, the interesting thing about Ponderay Bay Trail is if you have a local pass, most people aren't going for more than 2 or 3 hours on the Ponderay Bay Trail, right? They're going for an hour walk. So if you have a local pass, you would literally like never pay to park there unless for some reason you need to leave your car there all day. But tourists who, again, are like kind of taking over the Ponderay Bay Trail lot in the summer would pay to go on a hike on Ponderay Bay Trail. It's paid access to Ponderay Bay Trail for people who don't have local parking passes, which is what that would create. Can you see Ponderay Bay Trail's up here? There's only like 10 parking stalls at Ponderay Bay Trail, but that is an unmaintained parking lot. We literally have a porta potty there. Who would love to have an actual toilet facility there? The way we pay for that is by making tourists who use these parking facilities pitch in. But we're never going to have like nice amenities at these parking areas if we don't have a way to fund them. That's unpaved, it's unmaintained, it's pretty gross.
Jason, while you have this map up,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious on that federal funding, those 300 stalls. Can you like?
Yeah,
circle
so
those
it
approximate
includes
stalls. that
So
we're
you can
thinking
see the
of?
RV. This is the RV park here. That's outside the Land Water Conservation Fund boundary, but everything east of that is encumbered by the rules that I said about the 100%, no more than 100% more for for any one user group. And then all these spots in the Dock Street, that's Dock Street there. Those are the Windbag Marina spot. So all of those spots and those together make up more than half of all of our off-street parking downtown. So that's why my proposal is to have one policy for all off-street parking downtown, rather than saying, okay, City Beach is treated differently than city lots and Sand Creek lot. Right? It just gets really confusing and muddled when you have various fees and some parking passes are good at some lots, but they're not good at other lots.
Sure. Yeah, I can see how that could get confusing.
Yeah.
But good to understand that boundary.
But yeah, it's just the area within the City Beach, the main City Beach parking lot, and then the Dock Street, 45 stalls on Dock Street. And that, by the way, that's another thing that, there's been some requests from the Sandpoint Sailing Association, from the Marina Slip leasees. They said, why can't you just guarantee or dedicate, X number of parking spots at City Beach and at Dock Street so that they're only available to people who have slips at the marinas? So that like there's private parking signs up saying parking only for marina slip owners. And then those spots would be excluded. Everybody else would be excluded from using those spots. We can't do that for the same reason that the city can't give parking spots to the hotel or give docks in the marina to the hotel. The LWCF guidelines forbid the city from privatizing any of the amenities within those boundaries. So this whole privatization of City Beach, we would immediately be in violation of federal regulations if we were to hand over any parking to the hotel or hand over any dock space to the hotel or slips within those boundaries.
With that program.
And it's a good thing. Like we're under these federal regulations, which are honestly protected the interests of Sandpoint residents and American citizens from the privatization of public resources. We are forbidden by federal law to privatize anything within those boundaries. The only exceptions are things like we can have concessions. So EJ's here. EJ's allowed to offer Lake Pend Oreille cruises because that supports the recreational objectives of the park. Okay, there's a private concession running the snack shack at City Beach now because that's supporting operations of the park. They're making slushies and you know ice cream for kids at the park. Those are private businesses that run within the park, but the city cannot privatize anything that would take park amenities out of the public realm. So that's why we can't give parking spaces to the marina slip holders, and we can't give dock slips to the hotel. We can't give parking spaces to the hotel.
Do you know if that program, that grant federal program has any time frame?
In perpetuity, forever. Yes. Or yeah, forever.
I got a small detail question, and that is, does the spot bus currently go down to City Beach?
I don't think it does. I think there's a route down First Avenue, but I don't believe it goes down to City Beach.
But that would probably be an easy route change, should,
It takes too long.
yeah.
It
that's where
takes
you're
20
coming from.
minutes to.
About 10% of their funding comes from the city of Sandpoint, so we have some leverage on what their routes are. But if we wanted them to add additional routes, we'd probably have to pay for that. So there are budget implications there, but about 10% of SPOT's funding comes from city general fund. So we have a city council member on the board of SPOT, Justin Dick, and that is something that, you know, SPOT would probably be open to if we said, can you start running a route down to City Beach? But it would probably require the city coming up with funding. How can we pay for that funding? Perhaps a paid parking program at City Beach could pay for public transport solutions to City Beach. The hotels. The hotel could run shuttle buses, yeah. That's a great idea too. I see them from the Coeur d'Alene Resort to and from Spokane all the time.
And I think that was part of their intention, that they would.
Yeah, I
have
think they
a
were
similar
planning for freight
service.
shuttles.
Yeah. Commissioners, any other questions before we see if, yes. Commissioner Benner, yep.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the City Beach going back years ago when we were down there with shovels and rakes with the Lions trying to keep the City Beach going. But one of the things we keep talking about parking for cars. What about if we why doesn't the city of Sandpoint look at opening it up to getting more golf carts, 4x4s? We are great on bicycles, but we don't encourage anybody on a 3-wheeler bicycle or a 4-wheel. We discourage that. What if we started encouraging more of that? You wouldn't have to worry so much about the locals maybe for parking spaces at the City Beach. It would make it much easier to get down there and get downtown and around. And it's a flat city, and 8 months out of the year, things like that would work just perfect.
Yeah,
if
and
longer.
I mean, like I said, that's the only way I get to City Beach in the summer is by bicycle because the parking's not tenable. It's just not something that I even expect to get. It would be absurd to drive to City Beach in the summer right now. So I think the status quo is that, right? That's pretty much your only option to get to City Beach unless you want to get there by 9 a.m. on a summer weekend. So yeah, maybe but the point here is to, you know, it's more about the people who have to drive to City Beach because they don't have the ability to ride their bike or ride a scooter or you know, whatever other micromobility. I know you're into micromobility, Wayne. What other micromobility options some of us have? People who don't have that option right now, it's, as I said, untenable to drive to City Beach. So we're trying to alleviate some of that pressure from out-of-state visitors to free up more of those spots for pass holders. And we do, I loved the idea, whoever it was, Will Mitchell, you know, making it really easy for people to get their passes and just renew it. You know, we send water bills out. Maybe we do it like the the state does, right? When I renew my license plate every year, I pay the $10 for a state park pass so that I don't have to pay $5 every time I go to Farragut or Round Lake.
We did that with dog licenses too.
Yeah, and this program really emulates that. It's $10 for a state park parking pass, or you pay every time you go. Right? It's just what we expect. You don't go to state parks without a parking pass, or else you're going to get a ticket, or you're going to pay $5. But that was a good idea from Mr. Mitchell.
But I don't, I still think that we should really, at the city, should be looking at opening it up to more golf carts and things like that to get around. I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure any registered vehicle that's street legal can drive on city streets now. ATVs, side by sides, golf
you
carts.
don't encourage it though.
I don't think golf carts are street legal,
Yeah,
Maybe not.
but
some of them
some
are.
of the 4x4s
See a
are.
lot of side by sides driving around.
They are,
City.
yeah,
Yeah.
some are.
So how, yeah, I'm open for ideas for how we encourage that too. Smaller parking spaces that only are available to smaller vehicles, maybe. Yeah,
Glad to help anytime you want some help.
thanks.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
just a couple
Commissioner
comments.
Duncan.
Wrote some notes. I think the fee amount is a little low and going down the road in the future, I think that, we'll probably be looking to raise it pretty soon if it does start out at the $10 and $20 range for the unlimited or for the access pass. I do like the idea of it being some sort of, like in the utility bill or something that's pretty easy like that for city residents. As far as the county resident portion of it, where do we draw the line with that? Because Priest River, Clark Fork, Elmira, Granite Hill. Not to say that there aren't people in those areas that use the city beach, but I think what it comes down to for me is, I mean, city residents do pay property taxes to the city, which is, last bill I remember looking at, I'm paying about $1,000 a year more just for the city portion. And I know that money goes to pay park staff and city police and fire and et cetera for the city, services. So it's not like living in the county, makes you less of a city, like Sandpoint is your city, right? But when it comes down to dollars and cents, if you live in the city, then you're actually investing in the city in a real way as far as taxes. And that would be my only concern as far as the difference between county and city residents. And I know that there's a little bit of it could be tough to add a fee to every county resident's property taxes like we do for like, solid waste. Although maybe there's a real easy way to do it, but I think you're gonna get some people in here that are concerned about paying it. That are also concerned about paying for schools and stuff like that on the west side of the county, maybe. So that, if people in the county have a way to buy it easily as well, maybe in a similar way, then maybe that alleviates the burden of it being like expensive. But when it comes down to it, city residents do pay more. I mean, we do pay for these amenities. And in my opinion, I'm happy to pay for it as a city resident, but, does it irk me a little more when a friend of mine that lives out in Rapid Lightning is at the beach or somebody from Spokane that's at the beach? Obviously, the Spokane resident is a lot different, right? I mean, that's just very clear to me. But when it comes down to dollars and cents, there's not a huge difference in the amount of money paid from a Rapid Lightning resident to the city, besides shopping in town and some portion of the money that that is spent in town, or if you work in town, some part of your money is definitely getting to some sort of city function at some point. But we're probably talking about fractions of a dollar. And I don't have anything against county residents either, because I own property in the county and I'll be paying either way. So, you know, I don't have like a bias when it comes to this, but I do own property that is almost at the county line, which is only like one parcel away from being in Boundary County. And if I was in Boundary County, I'd be paying for Boundary County stuff. And I would also, if I had an address there, I'd get to vote there, right? So I would have like skin in the game, right? So I better wrap this up. But I do have a little bit of a concern of like, if we really look at like who's going to be the most affected by this in a negative way, I don't see any way that it isn't going to be people that live close to the beach, you know? And I don't know how to get around that because when it comes down to it, stuff has to be paid for. But I don't think the people coming from Spokane are going to be negatively affected by this. They're going to pay they're going to pay the money, no doubt about it. So I don't know if there's a way to get, you know, I mean, the idea about the spot bus or some sort of, you know, a way to get people down there so they don't have to park, but they still get to use the beach just like everybody else. Um, to me, that makes the most sense because like everybody said, like you don't have to drive to the beach to use the beach. You know, if you can walk down there, and luckily I do live close enough that I can walk down there, but in 20 years from now, I might not be able to walk down there. So having options like you know, some sort of help to get there would be pretty cool and to get ahead of that. I think that's where all this comes together, where I think it needs to cost more. And I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but personally, I'd be into paying like 4 times that as a city resident. Just because I know what pavement costs and I know what it costs to engineer stuff. And if we're looking at, oh, we want to have more parking down in the future, like a, you know, 2 or 3 story parking facility, this isn't going to cover that. I just came back from a vacation over Christmas and I paid like $115 to park in Spokane Airport for like 9 days. So, you know, that stuff costs a lot. And I always figure, well, that seems like a lot, but you know, they've built a lot of structure there too. So anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I comment on one thing there, Mr. Commissioner? There were a couple comments about the need for more parking downtown and a parking structure downtown. When it comes to cities financing a project like that, there has to be a demonstration of a willingness to pay from the community and from the users of that parking structure. Otherwise, you know, the idea of a bond being issued, unless there's a demonstrated level of demand and willingness to pay for a parking structure, it would be almost impossible for city to ever finance such a structure. So that's another reason. If I think we all know in the future there has to be more parking downtown, more public parking downtown, and the only place to go is up for that because we're not going to demolish downtown restaurants and historic buildings to put parking lots. And there was also a comment about the requirement. We should be really looking at the zone where off-street parking is not required and perhaps consider requiring off-street parking from new development downtown. I just want to point out that several beloved local businesses would not exist if there were off-street parking requirements but downtown. Around the time that ordinance was adopted, Joel's was moving from their second food truck into their home today. And the code at the time that Joel's was purchasing the property where they're located today required that for a restaurant of their size, employing that many people with that many square feet, 27 off-street parking spaces would have been required. They would have had to buy the entire block, okay, where the Greasy Fingers bike shop was. They would have had to buy that, okay? They couldn't do it. It absolutely was an unfeasible project with the off-street parking requirements at the time. The repeal of those off-street parking requirements is what make local businesses possible. That's how we prevent Sandpoint from becoming a strip mall town where only big box stores can afford to build. Okay, if we required off-street parking for every commercial business downtown based on the same engineering manual that required the 240 spots for the City Beach Hotel, 2/3 of downtown would be demolished and turned into off-street parking facilities. 100%. That off-street parking requirement is the only hope we have for workforce housing in Sandpoint. If we're going to see development of dense housing downtown where workers can afford to live, we can't require that every unit that gets built provides one off-street parking spot. An off-street parking spot runs between $50,000 and $70,000 to provide, and it consumes valuable land that could otherwise be used for commercial activity or for housing for people. So just to provide a little context there, that the instinct is that we need more parking downtown. But if we put that on the shoulders of builders and developers, that is going to make downtown not the town that people moved here for, not the charming historic town with old buildings. You know when they didn't have parking requirements? In the 1910s. That was literally a phenomenon of the 1970s to the 1990s. And then all over America, we saw historic downtowns get leveled for parking structures and for parking lots. And by the 2000s, planners around the country freaked out and said, what have we done? We've destroyed our historic downtowns in exchange for concrete and asphalt parking lots and parking structures. So in the 2010s, across the country, progressive planners and progressive communities realized their mistakes and started eliminating off-street parking requirements downtown. And that's the only reason we're going to have historic preservation in Sandpoint. We're going to have small family-owned businesses like Joel's. Joel's could not have existed with the off-street parking requirements we had in 2010. So just a little response to that. There's a whole lot more behind that. We'd be happy to do a presentation at a future planning meeting with you all, because these were things that previous planning commissioners, these were decisions made by the Planning Commission 12 years ago that have allowed for businesses like Coachava to exist. Coachava was required under code to provide something like 150 off-street parking spots. So imagine if all the blocks around the Coachava headquarters were parking for Coachava. That's what our parking requirement would have been. And then you wouldn't have Alpine Shop, you wouldn't have Joel's, you wouldn't have Utara. I don't know what Greasy Fingers is now, but whatever Greasy Fingers is going to become, we wouldn't have that real estate office. No offense, but maybe we could do without that real estate. But the city parking lot, we have to demonstrate demand. We have to demonstrate willingness to pay. If we go another decade without paid parking, you know, we had paid parking for 70 years of our history. If we go another decade without paid parking, who's going to issue a bond to the city of Sandpoint to build a 3-level parking garage and once and for all solve our parking situation downstairs? Or downtown.
Downtown.
Sorry. It's getting late.
It's getting late.
Downstairs.
Okay. Do we have other questions? No. Let me get a pulse on the audience here. How many of you would like to make more public comment? Okay, I think let's allow it. Is it, what were you going to say something?
I also have a participant on Zoom with a hand raised.
Okay. So if we can try and limit, and this can be a little more freewheeling in terms of, instead of just comment, if you want to ask a question for clarification, feel free to do that. But still try to limit to the 3 minutes, just so that we can get through in a fairly reasonable hour.
Can we request a bio break for those who need it?
We can. It's locked. That door over there is locked. But again, we're not making any formal kinds of votes here tonight, so if you want to leave and come back, I think we can continue with your, pardon?
So I can go to the
Yes,
bathroom?
if you need a bio break, if anybody else needs a bio break, feel free. But we can continue, I believe, unless anybody's going to tell me we can't. I'm listening for voices from legal counsel. Let's, if it's, okay, go ahead, because you're
Well,
here.
there's somebody on Zoom.
I know, we'll get the Zoom person right next, because.
Sorry.
No.
Monica Gunner again. It just seems to me that with the size of the hotel going in down at the city beach, why was it allowed to be so big if they couldn't provide the parking spots? That just seems like too much building for the little piece of land down there, and it should never been approved to be so big. I thought that's what planning and zoning was for, is to regulate that stuff. Because now they are going to use the city beach parking spaces. So.
Will it be interesting? I mean, as it's been said, during convention time, perhaps, during wedding time, yes.
Yeah, but
Overnight,
still,
no.
it doesn't matter. It's still going to
Right.
be using it. It's just wrong.
But, the only thing I was going to add, just say to that is that there is a huge misconception about what planning and zoning does and does not do. The size of that building was well within their rights. They did not need approval from planning and zoning or the city to build the structure of that size. What they did need from planning and zoning was actually a variance that was in the city's favor. And that was that city code in a commercial zone like that requires you build up to the property line, because we don't want vacant spaces downtown. That you see the downtown businesses, they are right to the property line. The buildings are right to each other. What would have, when they asked for a variance so that they could build the building farther away from the property line so that it wouldn't obstruct the views of the lake from the downtown area as much. It still will impact the views, of course. But the variance that they requested was to eliminate that property line requirement. As far as the size of the building, that was nothing that needed a variance. That was something that was within their rights when they purchased the property.
Mr. Chairman.
No, it did, and that's why it was approved. That since has been changed, but it was, the structure was approved as it was. And that's a suggestion that has come up here tonight that I'm sure city and staff, and particularly legal, I don't know, perhaps you do know, the code of in lieu, is that that's a city code as opposed to a state code, am I correct?
Yeah, it's a right that any developer outside of the parking exempt zone can enact at their at their discretion. It's just a right that they have. So, and that is, in speaking, it's in recognition of the values that our parking exempt zone are promoting, which is this idea that, paving paradise to put up a parking lot literally isn't something in the best interest of the community. The term we use in the planning world is over parking, requiring buildings to provide more parking than what's really needed. While it sounds good for the community, it goes against the values that we're trying to promote as a community, which is real estate should be for people and for commercial activity, not for cars. When we convert more of our valuable limited land into parking structures, it's going against the people first philosophy instead of cars first. So the parking study that was submitted by the hotel demonstrated a real level of demand for that hotel, not an arbitrary level that was imposed by our code. Do I wish they had brought that proposal for you all? Yes, but were they required to under our code to go back? We asked legal, does this require a reopening of the conditional use permit hearing? The response was, no, this is not a change in the land use. The conditional use permit is about the use of the land, okay? What is required in our code is as far as parking is it's clear in our code that these can be, either enacted by right or through administrative approval. So it's not necessary to reopen the public hearing for a change in the number of parking stalls per our code.
So a recommendation that has come from several sources in the public is that a piece of code that as we said, we just finished the master plan. Now that will get the comprehensive plan, I should say, that will get translated into zoning and that will get translated into code. That is a code item that perhaps some people are not happy with.
Then that would be something that
To
the
get
planning
rid
and
of,
zoning
yes,
commission
correct.
could
Well, I
work.
don't know if that would be a planning and zoning commission as much as it would be.
It would be. It's a Title
Okay,
IX
gotcha.
zoning
Okay.
code. Yeah, but not tonight. of
Not
course.
tonight, definitely not tonight. No.
Not on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
And I would urge us to kind of limit back and forth about the hotel, as that is, it's not pertinent. It's not on the agenda tonight. Tonight's about
Correct.
the parking policy.
Jennifer, if I'm not mistaken. We had like 3 of them tonight, so the odds were in my favor.
Okay, so strap in because my thoughts are all over the place. Because I just noted them as I was listening. And again, I believe to come to the table with ideas, not just complaints.
And I do have all of your ideas from before in my notes, so thank
Great.
you.
So the more I think about it, the more a shuttle makes sense. It doesn't require us to create more parking places. It disperses the parking throughout the community. I'm thinking, and then, so like, I don't know what's happening with the building across from the lodge at the bridge, or south end of the Long Bridge. But that could be, then we could eliminate the traffic across the Long Bridge, right? And the accidents that happen in there, if we could create a shuttle stop there. If we provided the shuttles and got the hotels to pay for them. And then we've got 2 new hotels up in Ponderay, by Sweet Lou's, right? Well, there's 3 hotels if you include the Best Western there. Why can't they pay for a shuttle route that goes all the way from up there to all the way down past the Long Bridge? And do it more frequently. I don't think spot is the right answer because I can't imagine getting a bunch of kids and toys and coolers on the spot buses. So I think I don't know how we pay for that, but I think the hotels have deep pockets. And they're probably passing on their parking costs to their guests, just like any other big town. And then, it would also create some shuttle driver jobs. And so there's that. What about, and I was present when we made the city RV lot. But if that belongs to the city, what would be the difference between the income that it provides as an RV lot versus a parking lot?
Great question.
That's great prime real estate right there. Why not incentivize the local businesses that have parking lots, like behind IPA, across from Joel's there, and the bank across from 219. There's some parking lots that are private. Can we incentivize those business owners to open up their parking spaces after business hours or on weekends? That provides more parking that we don't have to build. And then just my comment about, somebody said that we're getting less and less places for locals to use our recreation areas. And I also know EJ. I worked on his boat for a while, and most of his customers are elderly or have pretty severe mobility problems. So to expect them to park way out is just really not, it's really gonna reduce the number of people that are able to frequent that business. And so that leaves people like me that also have trouble getting up and down and walking around. I end up down on, some of these local roads, and then I have to climb over boulders and rocks with my chair and my cooler to try to get down to get my feet in the water. And then pretty soon that wears away our local roads. Can we hold you all to that 3 minute? Just asking.
No, you can't. Excellent.
And then lastly, I just wanted to mention, I just wanted to comment about the three-wheeler. I appreciate that, but I actually got hit on my bike going under the bridge at City Beach by a car. And I can't imagine how a three-wheeler would get across that bridge without widening it in some way. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. And I forgot, we had somebody on Zoom. Do we still have a hand up on Zoom, I hope?
We do. We have Nate Holland on Zoom.
Okay, Nate, floor is yours.
All right, you guys can hear me?
Now we can, thank you.
Okay, great. Appreciate the presentation, very informative. With the parking at the city beach, I heard that there was going to be a gate involved, a lower raising and lowering one that scans your license plate, and if you don't have your pass, you get a day ticket. I'm just worried about the congestion going in and out of City Beach. We already know that on a hot summer day, people trying to find parking spots, kids running around. It's slow moving down there with cars, hopefully. And I'm just worried that it could be a gate put there, someone loses their credit card and is fumbling at a gate. If there's the technology, like a toll bridge technology, would be something to look into. I'm just seeing that could be a problem in the future. Just want to avoid any more congestion than possible. And that's into my comment. Thank you very much.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you. Yes, Glenn.
Yeah, real quick, Mike Fay, Sandpoint resident. Now, just to get clarification on this, you were saying that the grant or the federal money that we're receiving requires that there be a base payment for everybody or for city residents, say, Like a $10 administrative fee?
Basically, the rule is if you charge for anybody to park, you have to charge for everybody to park.
Okay, so is that capped out at like, say,
There's no,
$10,
there's no
20?
dollar amount, it's a percentage amount. You can't charge any one group more than, or I should say less than half what you charge any other group.
Okay, so
So
10
it's
bucks.
a ratio of 100%.
Okay.
If we charge $1 an hour to locals, we can charge $2 an hour to non-locals.
Okay,
If we charge $10 for an annual pass to locals or to anybody, we can only charge, we can't charge more than $20 to anybody else.
I see. Thank you. Now, has there been any kind of discovery on actually building upwards in the downtown city parking lot? Has that been looked at? And just not,
Well, it's to double the number. So we have 121 parking stalls right now. If we wanted to build a 242 parking stall garage, in other words, add another level exactly on top of that, we're looking around $12.5 million,
Right.
which is an entire year of our general fund budget.
right,
So it's going to be that's the funny challenge. If we want to triple it, it's going to be more like $18 million, just because
Yeah.
of the cost of off-street parking stalls right now is around $50,000 to $70,000 per stall. So it's
Okay.
a multi-million-dollar project that would only be funded through a bond or some sort of public-private partnership where a developer came in and built it on their dime and then leased
got
spots back
some
to
of
us or
it.
something.
okay.
And that was something that the previous city administrator was exploring. You know, it's not going to happen in the next 5 years, but
Right.
maybe 10 or 15 years, it could be something we do.
Okay, and just a question about like peak season fees. Is that something that's been stirred up a bit?
Well, we know the peak demand at the waterfront lots is weekends between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So that's where we're looking at going from $2 to $3 during that time for non-pass holders. But again, I've heard some feedback that those numbers aren't low enough. $16 isn't enough to deter people from parking there all day.
You mean they're
So-
too low? You mean they're too low?
Or,
not-
sorry,
yeah.
not high enough. Again,
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
late. So this is all feedback I've heard tonight. I'm hearing everybody seems to think 2 hours isn't long enough, especially at the City Beach lot. So maybe we can come back with another version of this that has more like 3 or 4 hours at City Beach lot. And that maybe we need a stronger disincentive for those non-pass holders to actually pay more.
Mhm.
So those are both good recommendations that I've heard.
That's it for me.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think I saw another, yes.
Yeah.
And your name again?
Barbara Little,
Barbara, thank you.
city resident. You said convention season is April, October, but wedding season is in the summer and there's nothing like a beach wedding. And so that overflow is gonna be a problem. And as far as other kinds of vehicles to bring, if you have 4 kids, and when my grandkids were little, I had a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old, trying to get them all to the beach at the same time. And I walk everywhere, but there was no way I could do that on my own. And oftentimes I had all 3 of them on my own. So to not provide parking right there for families who are going to use it is just, it takes away a huge recreational opportunity for those families, and it's just not fair. And so there's got to be a way to ensure that people who need to get there, I never do anything but walk to City Beach now, but all the grandkids are older now, and they can bring their own towel and pails and whatever they need. But, you know, when there are a lot of young families here, and they should have access to it as well, because there's no other thing for them to do.
That's another concrete suggestion. Just like we have handicap parking, maybe we have family parking zone.
That would be an excellent idea.
And that, just bringing it full circle, that's going back to Commissioner Torpy's question about the objectives here. The objectives are to make parking at City Beach more accessible to those families. But right now, it's not very accessible based on what we know anecdotally and from our parking study because of the extremely high demand. The fact that there are, on average, 0 spots available at City Beach during that peak hour in the summer.
The other thing you might do is put signs around that says free parking on the street 3 blocks away.
Great idea. Yeah. Great idea. I'm going to add that to my notes.
Thank you.
Jason,
Did I see another hand up? Yes, I did.
Jennifer Alderman Brown, city resident. Has there been any question posed to county or city residents about building up? I mean, I thought 20, 30 years ago, we should have had level parking. And I've never seen it come up anywhere on a ballot.
Hmm.
People need parking. I don't think the opposition would necessarily be there if it were to be on a ballot. We know it's expensive. We know it's needed. Maybe it's time to put it out there.
Can I respond, Mr.
You-
Commissioner?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, and going back to that demonstration of willingness to pay and demonstration of demand, this would be the first step in that effort. So if after a few years, we show that the city is earning $300,000 to $400,000 of revenue from parking downtown, and then we can, and everybody knows that we still have a parking issue downtown, that's our evidence that we can show, bond issuers. And then we ask the voters, are you willing to support a bond? Are you willing the city to take on $15-20 million of debt to build a parking structure? But the issuers of those bonds would need to see that there's an ability for the city to pay back that bond.
Mhm.
So our interest payment on a bond would be, paid from the revenue we earned from that parking structure. But if we go out for a bond and we say, we don't have any actual proof that there's demand for parking or that there's a willingness to pay for parking, how can we justify building a 400 stall parking garage if we don't show that there's any actual revenue to pay back the loan we had to get out to build that garage? So that is the end game, Ms. Brown, is to build a parking structure downtown, but we have to show that there's demand for that.
I think that transparency with the public would be incredibly important, and not just on your website, because there's so many people here that don't utilize online activities. It's got to be something that they can see. If there's surveys to be out, those should be out at public places where they can pick up a piece of paper in their hand, fill it out and send it in. Put those things down at the city beach, at the public library, somewhere where they can access it at their time frame and not have to come after work when they've got kids at home that need to be taken care of, or they're elderly, they don't like to drive at night. I think transparency would be incredibly helpful because there's a lot of residents feeling slighted.
Thank you.
And we will have those 3 more committee meetings in the next month. I know the press is watching this tonight and plans to do stories. And I will ask the mayor to promote those upcoming meetings on the city's social media too. So that because this has been just insanely valuable tonight. This is exactly what we wanted.
lot
This
of
is why
very
I
good
reached out to
suggestions.
groups in town to try to get involvement here. So
And I see one more hand back there. And did you comment earlier? Got to cross your heart that you'll fill out a little form before you leave this evening. Come on up and tell us your name and if you're a resident.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Klunder. I'm a City of Sandpoint resident and a downtown business owner as well. So parking is definitely something that I've seen the city deal with and struggle with through the years. When the city lot downtown became free, I don't think the city council at that did it willy-nilly or because they didn't like the revenue. They had valid reasons at the time for doing it and that still are merit and valuable today. Before that parking lot was free, downtown business owners and employees played the 2-hour parking game, and they shuffled from parking spot to parking spot and blocked all the parking downtown for the people that we actually want to come down there. And when they moved to that city parking lot, it opened up spaces in front of the businesses, made it more accessible to the public, more people came downtown, and the vacant storefronts in downtown Sandpoint went down. Businesses are there. It's drawing more people in. So I don't know that saving that lot and making it free is valuable either. Philosophically, I wonder why the city even owns that lot. We're looking at spending $400,000 to pave that lot again. And we don't know if the revenue will be there or if people are going to be willing to pay for it. Sell the lot. Let's let somebody else come in and build that parking structure. If someone builds a comparable facility to what Averill proposed for downtown, for City Beach, there in downtown, Sandpoint would be far better off than a newly paved parking lot from the city. And so that's my philosophy. Why should the city be in the business of selling parking? Let's do what the things that the city does well: police, fire, streets. Then speaking of streets, the city had recently had a pretty big proposal to collect a lot of money from sales tax for it. And it was tough for me, but I had to vote no. And why did I vote no? There was no plan. You didn't tell me what you wanted to do with that money. You didn't tell me which streets were going to be rebuilt and to what standard. Are you going to rebuild the streets like 6th Street? No, I don't want that. I'm not going to vote for that. Are you going to be rebuilding the streets pretty much as they are? Maybe even reduce some of the costs of the streets by getting rid of bump outs and things? Making streets more user-friendly for some of the larger vehicles that we see around town? Yeah, I'd support that. The city reran the 1% sales tax for the parks again. I said no. Why did I say no? There was no plan. Give me the money and then I'll give you the plan. I'm not going to give you money without giving you a plan. Would anybody come to a builder and say, I want to build a house? Just give me $2 million? Well, what's the house going to look like? Is it going to be Mediterranean? Is it going to be, give me some design, give me a plan. I'll vote for a plan. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. And be sure to fill out the little form there at some point. Oh,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
one more.
We have another one? Okay, come on up. Okay.
City resident for years and have used the beach down there forever with family and without family. Now, I've been away for several months, so I'm not in totally the know. I don't know how big this hotel is, how many stories high, but why didn't it build parking underneath the building itself? I'm not talking about underneath the sand, like the Hagedon did. They have 7 stories. Why can't this hotel that's going to be taking up our space in our community build their own parking lot underneath their hotel and raise it up about 20 feet? So anyway, that's all I wanted to say this meeting, but I will be back.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hey, everybody wants to, yeah.
Oh,
Come on up.
My name's Danny Schoenrock. I live in Sagal, across from Springy Point, which I may be frequenting now so after all this conversation with my 3 little kids. 3 girls under 11 that all go to Sagal Elementary. What about like Lake Pondere School District enrolled students? Parents, like we get some sort of discount? Just an idea. And also I think on the hourly, longer is better, but what about full and half day? Because if I'm going to pay as a Bonner County resident that is, not paying as much for the city, I would rather have that option. So
Can you clarify what you mean by
like
that option?
instead of 2 hours or 4 hours, like full day or half day. So you're paying not like by the hour as a resident, but like I want to pay for the season for a half day pass. I don't want to pay for like hourly rates at City Beach. I don't know. Because we can go down there and
So
mingle.
you'd rather have, so for like similar to what we're offering, like downtown business employees or
Yeah.
slip owners
Yeah.
at City Beach.
I'd rather have an option for that. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
So the current proposal is only people who have slips at the marina can buy
Which I have.
unlimited parking pass.
Mhm.
You do have.
We have a win bag and it's hard to get one. And we've had it for
Oh, yeah,
7
there's
years.
a lottery. There's a long waiting list for those.
I know. So now I can't ever have it and you guys are $100 me left and right. Just kidding. You get it. It's true. I know. I'm not complaining. I love everything.
but-
Pay for it. I just,
We would advocate for that pass that you have access to be available to everybody.
yeah, that would be way better. But, okay,
It's an idea. and we'll do it, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll fill out the form.
I appreciate that, or else I'll get in trouble.
One more comment. please.
Okay, one more brief comment from Commissioner Dunkel.
So I'm not bringing up the hotel again, but one of their ideas, which I think may be an idea with like the shuttle thing, is to have a valet area at the beach where people could drop their stuff off, they could hop out, and somebody would take their car to a lot on the other side of town or wherever was acceptable. I know I personally would pay for that because I'm not parking and walking it more than I have to. And I think the hotel did have that plan. And when they made their proposal, they were going to get by with less spaces because of the valet option. And I think they were building underground parking, from what I remember. Part of the lot was undergrade.
Indeed. I think part of the structure was undergrade, and they were planning on having valet parking for their customers, which includes both the restaurant as well as lodging. But those plans are all still flexible, fluid, if you will. All right. Has everybody had their chance to speak? Good. We want that. So I will declare that portion of our meeting done. And thank you all very much for coming and for and giving your very valuable information to help make this plan a little bit more amenable to everybody and accessible by residents.
John, I just got a question for Jason. Jason, I have some questions or comments on this survey. Can I just get together with you on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, commissioners, unrelated to this agenda, do we have this agenda item? Is there any other general information stuff you want to bring up? Yeah.
So this is your last one.
Yes,
So again, thank you. Appreciate it.
it's been a pleasure.
Who's your replacement? What are we doing about you?
Right there, he's about to leave.
Walking out the
Oh,
door.
there he goes. No. In terms of a chair of the.
Well, you know, I had brought that up if that should be on the agenda tonight to
Yeah.
an elect for you,
Oh,
but
we
you
can't-
all will
We can't
decide.
nominate somebody without him here?
Your first, well, see, they didn't want me to vote.
Okay, exactly.
Have
All good.
The new
Appreciate it.
commission.
The new commission will be ones who
Love it.
get to decide that.
That was my question.
So yes.
Thank you again.
And I know when I got elected, it was because I paid people. So if you want to be, strike that from the record, please.
Hey, we're just doing that.
Okay, well, if there is no further business before the commission, this meeting is now adjourned at 8:05 PM. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.